I got loyalty, got royalty inside my DNA. I got jealousies, got war and peace inside my DNA. I got poison, pain, and joy inside my DNA.
Hello and welcome back to my channel, Fanfic Fantasy. Join us as we delve into the realms of fanfiction and fantasy, bringing you the best stories and discussions. Today, we're kicking off the second part of our series, What If Ichigo Awakens All His Powers and Got Harem? If you enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more content in the future. The author of this story is Teloch from ff.net. All the relevant links are in the description. Feel free to say hello to the author on their profile. Now, let's dive into the fanfic. It was like something from a nightmare. Every passing second brought more and more of those mindless beasts. Tens turned to hundreds and hundreds to thousands as they continued to pour through holes in dimensional space, driven by their hunger to seek and devour. From partially humanoid to completely beastly and monstrous, each wearing masks that one would see in nightmares. The cousins could only stare in horror as they descended on the city. As they finally began to register what was happening, they began to panic. Oh God, Ichigo managed to finally speak. Yuzu, Karin, his worry immediately going to his sisters, still young, still fresh, still weak. An appetizing treat for a hungry hollow should one find them. We have to go get them. He was about to run off before Uryu held him back. Ichigo, he yelled out, barely restraining himself from rushing off to save the twins. I'm just as worried about them as you are, but you have to stay calm. Always the thinker, always the planner, always looking out for his hot-headed brother in arms. You are still in your human body, and unless you can control your bow immaculately, you can only use Kaido, and those incantations take quite some time. Where is Rukia? They had to get him in spirit form and fast. He was stronger then, more powerful. Ichigo took a few deep breaths to calm himself and to focus on his wayward partner. She just left Urahara's, he said as he noticed her speed, and she's already in spirit form. They sighed in frustration. They had to ensure that Ichigo's body was safe, and Urahara's shop was quite the distance away. Time was not on their side at all. What's really bothering me is who used the hollow bait. This surprised Uryu as both he and his father disposed of all the hollow bait they had years ago. Did Aizen get the formula, or was the Vandenreich making a move? Our enemies are probably trying to test us. See how strong we are, he hypothesized, which means we can't afford to go all out. But this still exposes us, Ichigo said as he remembered a few others. Chad and Rukia can handle themselves, cons with Karin and Yuzu, and I can only hope they'll ignore Tatsuki and Orihime. He had faith in his allies in battle, and Kon was designed to bodyguard the girls in that body. But Orihime and Tatsuki had greater Ryatsu than most people, so there was still a chance they could be targeted. The two warriors felt trapped. No matter what, there was loss on their end. Trying to figure out the best plan left the boys paralyzed. This was their first real battle. Not some random weak and stupid hollows that are spread apart, but a veritable army coming against them. They realized that all the training they did nothing to account for the very real fact that they might fail this day. Standing around moping is not going to help anyone. A familiar firm and deep voice. The boys turned to see their Quincy teacher stride out to join the boys in witnessing the terror before them. Yes, if you fight, you will give your enemies the chance to study you, to learn your strengths and weaknesses, he said, voicing one side of their dilemma. However, you can just stand back and let this carnage happen, he said, as fact, not possibility, fact. Doing so will keep you both under the radar for some more time. But such an act will lead to many injuries and death to the living and the dead. He readjusted his glasses as his two students turned to face him. None of us trained you to second-guess yourselves. Yes, your enemies will learn valuable information on you, but this will teach you something about yourselves as well. He glared at the boys, making them feel the weight of the next decision they would have to make. Will you be cowards, or will you fight? Neither team moved for seconds that passed like hours. Suddenly the two threw themselves over the side of the building, skating away on a flow of rise. He smiled in satisfaction. Those two will be your downfall, Iwatch, he thought as they disappeared. They've gotten much faster. He turned and began preparations for the influx of new patients he would be having. So what's the plan you're going for? Uryu asked as he followed his cousin, flying through the air on the flow beneath their feet. Ichigo had general ideas, Uryu did the fine-tuning. We're heading to Karin and Yuzu, Ichigo replied as they skirted past some hollows, occasionally striking out with fists or small-scale Kaido. Kon's current body is strong, but mine is better. He'll take them and my body back home so we can focus on the fighting. Ichigo felt his phone vibrating in his pocket, despite the pressure and friction pressing on him. He looked at the screen, slowing down only slightly to prevent destroying the small device. It had only one message from Kisuk. Level 1 restraints lifted. Ichigo was just given permission to use higher level Kaido and attacks. He knew just the set to use for this. This isn't good, the muscle-bound giant thought as he sensed all the hollows pour in like rain in a storm. Despite the coming battles he would face, Chad remained very calm about his situation. Ichigo and Uryu are already on the move. If I had to guess, they're going to Yuzu and Karin. He guessed, knowing his best friend's protective brotherly instinct would push in to defend his precious sisters and Uryu would watch his back. Guess it's up to me then, he decided as a group of hollows surrounded him. What a tasty-looking soul you are. He heard them speak amongst themselves. A large pale purple one with a mask like swirling wind currents reached out crush him in its massive hands. Sato grabbed onto the hollow's hand, turned, and threw it into one of its comrades around him. The explosion of dust and debris scared what remaining bystanders there were into running for their lives. While the hollows themselves tried to figure out what had happened, Chad jumped up to one of them with his empowered arm and smashed the beast's mask, killing it without a blast of Rizei. "You want me?" he asked, glaring at the hollows as they managed to get back on their feet. "Come and get me," he growled before turning and running away. The hollows just stared in confusion before Chad flared his Ryatsu, making them act on instinct to catch their prey. "I have to get to a safe place to fight," he thought as he remembered what Yoruichi and Urahara told him. "Your fists have a lot of power in them, Sato." He heard the voice of the shopkeeper repeat in his mind as he stopped running once he reached the empty park. "Great heavy attacks, but you must be careful using it in the city." One of the hollows reached out to grab him and Chad caught its hands in his own before tearing its arms off and slamming his head into the hollow's mask, crushing it. "All it takes is one mistake." Yoruichi's voice rang out in his ears as he fired a shot at another hollow, destroying its head. "And you could cause great damage to a lot of innocent people." He jumped onto another hollow's beastly mask and jumped off with enough force to shatter the white bony structure. "So you should learn to control the amount of power you put into it." He charged up his arm again, making it glow in bright light, before shooting his fist out rapidly, blasting out a rain of his Rizei blasts like a machine gun. The ground beneath became littered in small craters and the dissolving bodies of hollows unfortunate enough to get caught in the blast. He landed on the ground just in time for more to show up, drawn in by his still flaring Ryatsu. "Ichigo, I'll draw as many as I can to me," he thought to himself, possibly trying to send a message to his friend. "Get to your sisters, then come here. I'll hold out till you show up." He charged at the next hollow, ready to continue the long fight ahead. Unaware of the growing tear in the sky, Tatsuki was still thinking about what Ichigo said to her. She was a normal girl. She was always more into guy things, standing out from the girly girls but never fully one of the guys. Compared to Ichigo, her boyfriend she's sharing with Orihime, she's normal. A normal human with nothing to prove otherwise than seeing spirits. Sure, she was stronger, faster, and more skilled, but only because she was being taught by Yoruichi. She wanted to prove him wrong, that she's not some helpless girl. But how? Tatsuki breaks over. She heard a voice yell out inside of the karate club's room, telling her to return for her next match. She wanted to help him, help carry that burden he put on himself, but she remembered how she felt seeing her first hollow. She was afraid, frozen with unease. She put on a brave face with Ichigo because she refused to let him see her as weak. That same feeling she had now. Tatsuki. She turned to see Orihime, still around after her own club activities finished. After their date with Ichigo, they had a private talk over the phone and she told her about what happened with Ichigo. Orihime had that way with people. She could tell when something was wrong and no one could hide it from her. That was also the first time she ever seemed mad at anyone. She never raised her voice and never said a mean thing. Until that day. "What is it, Orihime?" she asked her oldest friend before they heard glass breaking. They rushed to find the source, but there was nothing. Just broken glass and people arguing. They and a classmate named Chizuru ended up being the ones that had to clean up the mess. She kept complaining about having to help clean, while Tatsuki and Orihime couldn't shake off the unease they were feeling. "Why do I have to help?" The perverted lesbian whined while she and Tatsuki swept up the dangerous shards of broken glass that littered the area. She received no response as Orihime was watching the sky tear and Tatsuki was on guard. "What is up with you two?" Again nothing. "Tatsuki, if Orihime keeps spacing out I'm going to give her a nice rubdown," she teased, knowing she'd react furiously to keep her from Orihime. "Chizuru," Tatsuki said as she got up, looking toward the open field. "Why are you here?" She had to get Chizuru and Orihime out of there. "Why don't you and Orihime leave early?" She tried, but the monster was impatient. There was an explosion of dust as it dropped down before them. A spider's body with large crab claws and a snarling mask was the beast's appearance. "Orihime, run!" Tatsuki yelled out as she grabbed Chizuru and bolted. They managed to get Chizuru through the door and into relative safety, but the hollow shot out a mass of webs and barricaded the door, trapping Orihime and Tatsuki alone with the hungry monster, all unaware of the more dangerous creature watching them. Tatsuki, Orihime was terrified. Here they were, face to face with monsters people have trained for years to decades to prepare to fight these monsters. Ichigo was already fighting them and treated the beasts as an annoyance. What should we do? All Tatsuki could think of at that moment was how right Ichigo was. She saw Chad's arm and she watched Oryu and she knew Ichigo's power. She had none of these. She kept hearing Ichigo's voice in her head, saying those words she hated. "You're a normal girl. You're powerless," over and over like a mantra chant of insanity. Not fast enough. Not strong enough. Fear became doubt, doubt in herself and her abilities. But doubt gave way to annoyance and annoyance gave way to anger. She growled as she clenched her fist, nails digging into her skin and drawing blood. Normal. Powerless. She shot herself forward like a bullet, charging headfirst at the monster that was set on eating them. "Shut up," she growled in response, narrowly dodging a swipe from the hollow's claws. "Shut up." She slammed her fist into the hollow's mask. "Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up." She kept punching away at the hollow, Orihime screaming at Tatsuki to run away while the beast tried to understand what was happening. This was still a fairly fresh hollow, not smart enough to recognize a growing threat as the girl continued to punch away at it. Or was there something else about it? "Yes, I'm normal. I want to hang out with my friends, worry about my grades, and get a little lovey-dovey with my boyfriend," she raged, her knuckles bleeding from punching the hollow's bony skull with no protection. "And yes, I'm powerless. I don't shoot things out of my hands like Chad and Oryu." She felt a fire build up inside of her, something she felt after a brutal spar against her teacher, Yoruichi. "But she punched it again, cracking the mask. "Am not." Another punch, cracking it further. Helpless, she threw a final punch at the hollow, covering it in a burst of fire. The air was filled with its sudden death cries as it dissolved into nothingness. Suki. She couldn't hear Orihime's voice. She did it. By some miracle she actually did it. She killed a hollow. Atsuki. She wasn't naive enough to think that this meant she was anywhere near to equal foot to Ichigo, but this was a first step. Now she had to train it and survive the day. Tatsuki. She finally heard her ditzy friend call out her name. Tatsuki. Orihime wrapped her arms around her tired friend and began crying, letting go of all of her worry and relief. "Can you lighten up, Orihime?" Tatsuki groaned out, the rage and adrenaline seeping out of her as her exhaustion took over. "My arms are killing me." She didn't really care. Orihime was safe, they were safe. "Looks like I made the right decision." They heard a withered, vile voice speak out. "I felt that girl's strength and wanted to see if she was a threat." The two friends looked to see some strange tentacled hollow floating above them and watching them hungrily. "Now that she's too tired to fight, this will be easy." The hollow flared out her tendrils and shot things out of her forehead, breaking through the glass with ease. Seconds later, Orihime and Tatsuki were surrounded by the other students, each one with a seed sticking out of their bodies. "Now die and feed me your souls," she screeched before laughing. Tatsuki could only glare at the hollow in rage. "Orihime," she called out to her friend, getting between her and the hollow as the zombified students closed in. "Run, I'll hold them off," she said, despite the feeling that she broke her hands. "Don't be crazy, Tatsuki," Orihime pleaded with her friend. "I can't just abandon you." "But you can't fight either, can you?" Tatsuki stated. She could feel Orihime's power for herself, and if anger brought out hers it might just help Orihime. "Just run. You'll only slow me down." Orihime was staring at Tatsuki in shock. Her best friend just said she's useless. Is this what she felt when Ichigo told her that? Is Tatsuki really going to push her away? That being said, I'm not sure how long I'll last, Tatsuki said as the possessed mob got closer and closer. Tatsuki. There was a yelling. They all looked up and saw the red-headed lesbian yelling out to them. "After you pass out, I'll teach Orihime all sorts of naughty things," she yelled out in a perverted tone. Tatsuki forgot about her immediate danger and vented her annoyance, throwing rocks and knocking out the zombies that got too close. "That should do it. Good luck, you mannish freak," she whispered from behind her cover as Tatsuki kept throwing things. "Chizuru, you keep your grubby hands off Orihime. You hear me?" she yelled at the lesbian while the hollow was shocked that it was being ignored. "Quit ignoring me," it howled as it pelted Tatsuki with her seeds, striking her in her thigh, shoulder, and stomach. "You're supposed to be wallowing in fear and hopelessness. How dare you ruin my fun?" it cried out indignantly. The question now is to how to make you pay for this. Tatsuki glared at the monster before her, filled with defiance to the creature. Why don't you strip naked and let these boys have their— The hollow was interrupted again as Tatsuki slammed her free fist into her shoulder, just below the sprout on her body. The result caused another blast of fire to pass through her and destroy the hollow's seeds. She also broke her bones in the process. But she made her point. She refused to let that freak have its way. Like I told so many others, Tatsuki said, glaring at the hollow, making it worry. I will crush anyone who hurts my friends. Orihime watched her best friend and remembered each time Tatsuki helped her, how everyone else helped her when she couldn't help herself. She relied on her brother, she relied on Tatsuki, she relies on Ichigo, but no one relies on her. She doesn't have anything to offer her friends. She hates that, and she's sick of it. Well, maybe I want to protect you once in a while, Tatsuki. Everyone was now watching the Auburn princess stand up. I'm tired of always being protected. I'm tired of always having to hide behind you. How about I do the protecting for once? The hollow became livid. I said, stop ignoring me. It shot off more of its seeds before a flash and whirlwind appeared. By the time the dust settled, something cut through one of its tentacles and there was a glowing triangular shield. I'm talking to my friend, she growled, glaring at the monster that attacked them. Shut up, you disgusting freak. Tatsuki was surprised by the level of aggression Orihime showed. Earlier she was just passive with Ichigo, but this was something else. She could only stare at Orihime like she was a completely different person. Orihime turned back to fight her and was about to continue. Orihime, where did that shield come from? Tatsuki asked, directing Orihime's attention to the glowing barrier. There was a silent pause as Orihime seemed to finally notice it. Oh wow, she exclaimed in childlike wonder as the points separated and joined their flying siblings. What are they? How should I know? Tatsuki asked as the sprites flew around them. Of course you wouldn't know. One rough voice spoke rudely. We are Orihime's powers after all. A more gentle one said. A pale green sprite landed on her shoulder before revealing the small fairy girl inside. Hi Orihime. She cheered happily as the rest revealed themselves, each dressed in a variety of ways. Orihime cried out, realizing something. You're the Shun Rika, aren't you? She remembered. A long time ago when a certain strawberry told her to make a wish on her precious present, she dreamed. In that dream, there was a field of flowers inhabited by 6 fairies. They told her they were watching over her, that they were with her, that they would protect her. Shuno, Ayam, Tsubaki, Dagon, Lily, Hinajiku, she cheered, wanting to hold each one to her chest after not seeing them for so long. It's so good to see you all again. Tatsuki could only watch in confusion. Wait, if you were with Orihime all this time, then where were you? She asked the flying spirits. That's easy, Shuno chirped, pointing at the now missing hairpins on Orihime's head. We manifest ourselves from her hairpins. There was another pause of silence as Tatsuki digested the information. No expressions changed in this time. So magic wish-granting hairpins. Tatsuki summarized from a long-past conversation. Yep, wish-granting hairpins, Shuno chirped. Orihime was ecstatic. They, wish-granting hairpins, she yelled, throwing her arms around her old friend. The hollow grew more and more furious. I will. Koten Zanshun, I reject. Orihime said with a cheery smile that felt surprisingly dark as Tsubaki silently split the monster in half that his master was pointing at. She turned to the monster with that same dark smile as she said in a chillingly sweet tone. Don't ruin the moment. The hollow faded into nothingness shortly after. Tatsuki felt a newfound respect and fear for her friend. But mostly, she was glad that Orihime was safe, and now she could prove Ichigo wrong. She winced as the pain came back, which Orihime noticed. Souten Kisshun, I reject, she said, enveloping Tatsuki in a glowing shield and undoing the damage done. Now that's useful, Tatsuki admitted, testing her arms a little. She noticed Orihime pouting at her and she knew what the girl wanted. Tatsuki sighed with a smile. I'm sore she couldn't say as Orihime immediately hugged her friend fiercely. Now I can help protect you, Orihime said, crying in joy a little. Tatsuki returned the hug in earnest. And we can both help Ichigo. If that's the way you feel, then you should get moving. The girls heard a familiar voice yell out to them. They looked up to see Yoruichi walking toward the girls with a proud smile. You did good for your first time, but this is nothing for beginners like yourselves, she said, pointing at the growing swarm as the hollows seemed to start converging on 2 places. If you really want to help, then drink these, she said before tossing the girls several water bottles. Those will help replenish your Raizhi. And Tatsuki, here. She handed her student a pair of armored gauntlets. Those should help you with those thick skulls, and you should be able to shoot fireballs if Kisuke did everything right. The girls looked excited at the prospect of proving themselves to their boyfriend. Let's do this. They cheered before attempting to drink their own refreshments. But this isn't a game, Yoruichi said, gravely seriously. You have to be very careful out there. The girls looked at the noble with a sense of recognition of the danger they recently faced. If you slip, you could die or get someone else hurt. Are you ready to risk that? She asked, making the girls question their resolve. They thought about how Ichigo must be out there, putting his life on the line to fight this infestation. And here they were, celebrating beating one hollow each. They swore to help Ichigo, and that's what they were going to do. They chugged their drinks fearlessly and felt themselves go back to 100%. Yoruichi smiled. Get to the park. We're watching your back. The girls ran off without another word. They should make things interesting, someone said, finally making their presence known. Kisuke is already working on thinning the herd where he goes. And you guys? Yoruichi asked her companion, staying under the radar and helping where we can. He said, lazily. Ichigo has grown since the last time we've seen him. Maybe he can bring that Chad fella next time. We might be able to help him, he said as they continued to watch the gathering swarm and the growing tier in the sky. He kept crushing skulls, blasting them to nothing, and overpowering dozens of hollows with no rest. The monsters only seemed to get stronger as more came up, and more intelligent. Chad was starting to feel the strain. The area around him was being torn apart by his blasts and the hollows' attacks. This is bad, he thought to himself, trying to reassess the situation. A hollow tried to swipe at him, but he caught it and threw the corrupted soul around, smashing into other hollows before letting go, letting the force take them away. I'm getting closer and closer to my limit. A hollow with a bull mask charged at him, making Chad struggle against keeping the beast at bay. With a defiant roar, he headbutted the creature before slamming his empowered fist into its skull, wiping out several more hollows in the process. I could really use some help about now, he thought, as the horde showed no sign of decreasing. He was so focused on standing his ground, he did not notice the petite Shinigami's chant. Wrath of your claws. He heard the familiar voice and chant just in time to duck. Hado number 33. Sakatsui, Rukia yelled as a torrent of blue fire blasted from her hands, clearing a number of hollows. She, again, cursed her weakness. If Ichigo didn't drain her powers, she could use her Shikai to help out tremendously. But she knew that would be insane in this situation. Where did all these hollows come from? They never did something like this before. Sado, you alright? She asked her ally. I'm grateful for the extra room to breathe, Rukia, he said, getting up. Any idea what that tear in the sky is? He asked, punching another hollow into oblivion. If I had to guess, she grunted, dodging hollows swinging at her while she slashed them. I'm not sure I want to be right. Where's Ichigo? She asked. At his sister's school. Chad grunting, holding another monster at bay. He wants to make sure they're safe. He smashed the hollow's skull before slamming his foot on another one. Can he hurry up? She asked, cleaving through another hollow. There is nothing good beyond that tier, she yelled out as the duo kept the hollows at bay. The twins waited, huddled close together behind the protection of the barrier Yuzu erected between themselves and the hollows drawn to them. A barrier designed to keep hollows out, but others could pass through. Karin took this chance to help out their mod soul bodyguard with Hado blasts. Ye Lord, mask of blood and flesh, all creation, flutter of wings, ye who bears the name of man. Inferno and pandemonium. The sea barrier surges, march on to the south. Hado number 31. Shikaho, she yelled as a ball of red flames shot from her hand like a cannon, disintegrating another hollow while Khan continued to tear through the masses. He went through numerous modifications after he joined the Kurosaki family, particularly when it came to protecting the twins. Khan currently was a tall, lean, and ripped man-lion, with razor-sharp claws and strength to rival Chad's. The downside of this was that it only works when the girls were in immediate danger. Karin, Yuzu cried, trying to maintain the barrier as some hollows banged against it before being pushed back. Where's Ikai? Karin kept shooting off Kaido blasts while trying to keep her sister calm. He'll be here, she yelled out, having full faith in her brother. Ikai promised to protect us, remember? She asked, trying to reassure herself as much as her sister. Suddenly she felt herself and her sister being pulled together as Khan seemed to grab them. Just as he reverted back to that lion plushie, she locked eyes with Yuzu's in terror as a flash of glowing silver dropped in front of them directly at Khan's head. A silver rod strikes the five-fingered stone bed. Grits, they heard before being enveloped in darkness. They listened to the angered roars of the hollows before they heard the unmistakable tone of their protective brother. Ye Lord, mask of flesh and bone, flutter of wings, ye who bears the name of man, truth and temperance, upon this sinless wall of dreams unleash but slightly the wrath of your claws. Hado number 33. Sakatsui. They could feel the heat from Ichigo's Kaido spell through the Quincy barrier only one other person could have done. The seal fell apart and before them stood the ones they were waiting for. Ikai nai, Oryu nai. They twins cried as they ran to their brother and cousin. Ichigo knelt down to better hug his precious sisters while Oryu opted for a reassuring pat on the head, all the while ignoring the scorched schoolyard behind them. You two did great to hold out for this long, Ichigo said, giving them a congratulatory smile with the intent of calming their nerves. But you should head home and let us handle the rest, Oryu said as Ichigo extracted the soul pill to swallow. Now that he was in soul form, it was time to clear out the hollows. Kon, now in Ichigo's body, grabbed the girls and made his way for their home. You should have let Yuzu heal your hand a little, Ichigo said as Oryu looked at his bleeding hand. The rate of the hollows were increasing and his new bow was more than a little taxing on him. You'll just have to pick up the slack then, Oryu said while readjusting his glasses. Seems fitting since all you did was run while I covered you. Don't worry. Ichigo turned to his ally, one eye black and gold. There will be no rest till they're all dead, he said before they disappeared in a burst of speed, their destination obvious. The fight continued as the two defenders became more and more exhausted. Chad was breathing rather heavily with a few notable injuries on him, testing his endurance for the first time in a long time for the man. Rukia was faring no better as she did not have the same physical limit as her ally, and her already weakened state wasn't leaving her too much room for error. The next wave was about to commence when they heard backup arrive. Koten Zanshunai reject. Souten Kisshunai reject. Oriheim yelled out as her healing shield enveloped her two friends, fixing their injuries, while Tatsuki was riding on top of Tsubaki's shield. Once she got close enough, she jumped off the black sprite and began shooting fireballs at various hollows, each one burning away the corrupted soul. After Tatsuki disembarked, Tsubaki continued his attack and cleaved through many hollows as well. Looks like we showed up just in time, Tatsuki said, standing to her full height after landing next to her allies. Oriheim sat above them on her defensive shield and sitting in a meditative pose, trying to focus her energies on the battle. Here, drink these. They should replenish your Raizhi. They gratefully took the drinks as the new arrivals held off the swarm for a bit. After consuming the potions, Chad fired multiple rapid blasts to the hollows while Rukia shot out more Kaido spells. Then a sudden burst of blue flames erupted in the distance. Ichigo's coming, Chad said casually, greatly relieved that his friend is finally ready. TCH, it's about time, Tatsuki said, planning on giving her boyfriend the tongue lashing of a lifetime. Whether verbal or physical was up for debate. How long before he gets here? Rukia asked before being pushed to the ground by Sato. Hado number 32. Okasen, she heard as a massive blast of yellow energy obliterated many of the hollows, removing their forces by half. They looked up to see Ichigo shrinking his Zanpakuto back to the normal large katana he usually wields, smoke coming off his blade from the Kaido spell. Next to him was Oryu, still bandaging up his hand. You guys alright? He asked, resting his blade on his shoulder. They seem fine, Ichigo, Oryu said, preparing his bow for another onslaught. Though it seems you owe Arisawa-san and Inao-san a couple of apologies. Ichigo noticed his girlfriends among the fighters. Guess I do. But before that, he lifted his blade and swung two arcs with energy blasting off the edge. We're going to kill every hollow here, he said before flaring his Ryatsu, making every hollow quiver in primal fear as an apex predator appeared before them. Before they could flee, a barrage of black arrows found their way into masks and bodies. Chad smirked and continued to fire multiple blasts from his fist to the densest groups of hollows. Tatsuki and Rukia swerved through the beasts, striking them down with sword swings and blasts of fire. Oryu joined Oriheim atop of her perch and struck down the beasts from a safe distance, and Ichigo cut down swaths of hollows down with every swing. That's when they finally noticed the tear finally opened, and with it the creature Rukia feared. The hollows sang a macabre song of praise to the titanic hollow coming. The Minos Grand, Ichigo, Oryu asked his companion as the towering black hollow came forward with its freakish, long-nosed mask. Yeah, the hybrid responded, glaring at the behemoth. Where are the other soul reapers? The Quincy asked. Ichigo looked at Rukia, who looked at her cell and just shrugged, apparently proving the Quincy's point about them being late. Ichigo surmised. That's disappointing. Uryu said, walking toward the massive hollow. So, this is a Jillian. Biggest, dumbest, and weakest of the Minos Grand class. How droll, Ichigo said as he joined his cousin. You guys finish off the small fry, Ichigo shouted over his shoulder. We've got this. His friends were about to protest before hearing something like machine gun fire and the cracking of bones and skulls. Urahara's group had arrived. You heard him, the ex-captain said to the group. Let's get cracking. So how should we do this? Ichigo asked his cousin as the Jillian devoured its surrounding hollows with a quick lash of its tongue. I can only think of one way. Ichigo looked at his cousin and saw a familiar glint in his eyes he hasn't seen for years. No, Ichigo quickly said. No way, not happening. We swore we would never do that again ever. He remembered the last time they did that particular thing, and he still regretted the decision to have done it. Ichigo, we don't have a choice, Uryu pleaded while the towering Minos drew closer to them. You know damn well why that technique is forbidden. Ichigo yelled at his cousin, refusing to yield. I will never forget, nor forgive myself for that. Uryu glared back, remembering an old shame. That's why I've agonized over how to fix it. That's why I suggest it now. You mean? Ichigo asked, feeling slightly hopeful. Yes, I've made it so it doesn't have that ridiculous name and pose anymore, the Quincy declared proudly. Perfect. Ichigo met his ally's enthusiasm. Uryu held out his bow, horizontally. Grab on and manifest yours, Uryu said. Ichigo took hold of the black bow and worked to manifest his own. The bow doubled in size and length while pulsating with power. Now turn. They turned their hands so that their bows were now perpendicular to the connecting base between them, forming an H. Pull back the arrow, Ichigo guessed as they reached to the middle and pulled back a massive harpoon of their mixed Raizhi. And now, Heilig Ballist, they shouted and let the missile loose. The top half of the Jillian was blasted away completely. The remains dissipated as the two Quincy reflected on their victory. Yeah, much better than last time, Ichigo admitted as their spirit weapon dissolved. Man, that was embarrassing. Indeed, Uryu agreed. I'm glad my father never reminds me of it. Good for oh crap, Ichigo said as he saw a bright red light grow bigger as it came straight for them. Acting as fast as he could, he shoved his cousin out of the way and brought up his blade to block the oncoming blast. Ichigo what? Uryu watched as Ichigo was forced back a few yards from the Zero attack. What? Was there another Minos? He traced the blast back to its origin and saw a larger hollow, smaller than the Jillian but still huge, serving as the source of the blast. He turned back to Ichigo, trying desperately to think of a way to help his family, when he saw something weird. Some of the deflected energy of the Zero was being absorbed into Ichigo's blade, glowing with red and blue Raizhi as the blade turned black. I've had enough, Ichigo yelled, pushing back against the blast. Of this crap. The Zero ended and he swung his blade. For one day, the power he released overshadowed the Zero by a great margin, carving a trench in the ground with scorched earth and shattered glass. Tell Urahara I'm skipping training tomorrow, Ichigo said to Uryu before falling flat on his face. Yeah, Uryu responded, looking at the damage Ichigo caused which surely killed whatever hollow that was. I'll do that. It watched the final scenes play out before it. The display was as impressive as His Majesty predicted. However, it was unexpected that the Ishida boy would so willingly side with the Shinigami. Ichigo was definitely the greater subject of interest however. Mission objective, data retrieval, complete. The white-clad, masked figure said, further research is recommended. It spoke, turning to a hole in the air. Returning to Silburn. It said, light reflecting of the gold armor as it returned to a world of shadows. Soul Society acts. It was the next day. All the damage was undone. Urahara and Yoruichi were planning the next training schedule and methods to account for Orihime and Tatsuki awakening to their own powers. Everything else went along as normal. The students went to school and the adults planned for what might come next. Ichigo had invited Uryu to lunch, despite protests from Keigo. All Ichigo said was, deal with it. Hey Keigo, Ichigo called his cheerful friend. Tell us a story. Keigo felt honored. Despite his suspicions, lunch actually had a rather lively atmosphere. Very well, Keigo yelled out happily. Let me regale you with the tale. This should buy us the entire lunch period, Ichigo said, turning to Uryu. What happened? Father confirmed that it was definitely hollow bait that was used. They went to Urahara's to rest and recover. After Uryu's arms healed, he went to see if Ryukin had any information or guesses as to what had happened. Pretty potent for the amount of hollows, but still nothing to summon even one Minos Grand. So the Vandenreich was behind that incident, Ichigo summarized, but someone else capitalized on it. Indeed, they figured who had sent the Minos but didn't say anything. What about you? The Quincy asked after a moment of silence. What do you mean? Ichigo responded. Your lady friend seemed more than a little angry at you after that whole powerless thing. What happened? Oryu asked. Normally he wouldn't care, but Ichigo needed to focus, and if he was distracted by love troubles then they would both be in trouble. Well, Tatsuki, I'm sore, Ichigo tried to say as he was punched in the face, again, by his irate girlfriend. When her powers awakened, Ichigo wanted to apologize for telling her she was weak. He couldn't get a word in edgewise because she just kept punching him every time he said something. And just where do you get off saying that I'm the one that needs protecting when I've fought your battles for you when we were kids? She yelled, getting her knuckles healed by Orihime. Ichigo was very tough in spirit form. He didn't even bleed while Tatsuki's knuckles got bruised before Orihime started healing. You were the biggest crybaby. All Tatsuki wanted was to keep by your side, meanie Ikai. Orihime scolded with a pouty face. You should know that better than anyone. And Orihime's very gentle, but that doesn't mean you should push her to the side simply because she couldn't fight. Tatsuki kept up. Isshin stopped by to pick up Ichigo while talking with Urahara about what happened earlier. You better make this up to us in the biggest way, you jerk. Tatsuki glared as Ichigo realized that if he didn't say the right things, she would just punch him and hurt herself again. It's fine, he said, relenting to his angry ladies. How shall I pay for my sins? Tatsuki grabbed his shiakusho and pulled him in close. This for starters. She grabbed the back of his head and crushed their lips together, shocking everyone but Orihime, who took her turn once Tatsuki relented. Isshin was silently cheering the girls on and making his son a man while Urahara grabbed him a camera to commemorate the wonderful occasion. Tatsuki. They heard a familiar yell as the former head of the Shihoin clan stormed over to her students. What do you think you're doing? We were just kissing our boyfriend sensei. Tatsuki stammered. She was afraid of the aura Yoruichi displayed, knowing better than to anger her teacher. No you aren't, Yoruichi stated, pushing them aside and getting in close with Ichigo, whose brain appeared to stop working. This is how you kiss. She smiled mischievously before opening Ichigo's mouth and giving him a deep kiss. Remember, she mumbled while continuing to explore Ichigo's mouth, don't force it. Be gentle and rub against his tongue a bit, she explained, letting the girls watch with massive blushes on their faces. Ichigo apparently came back to reality, but he couldn't fight against the more experienced woman's ministrations. She finally pulled back to let them both catch their breaths. Now you try. The two girls nodded dumbly and took his lips again. Soon they collapsed onto the floor, the girls in his lap with each taking turns. So what are we going to call this? Urahara asked as he and Isshin documented this moment of Ichigo's life. It was agreed among everyone to record the biggest moments of his and Aryu's lives for when Masaki and Kani finally woke up, which Urahara predicted would be sometime that year. Ichigo's first makeout. Isshin giggled uncontrollably, feeling some pride as a father for having a stud of a son, but also knowing he could milk this for quite some time. And we will not show Masaki, ever, smiling as his son finally gave in and returned them. Thinks she wants him to stay her baby boy. Urahara guessed. Maybe, Isshin admitted. Nothing else really important happened that day, other than Ichigo staying in a deep haze until the morning. Wow, Aryu couldn't think of anything else to say. Yeah, Ichigo agreed, taking another bite of his bento lunch. I was going to destroy it, but that was some pretty good tips. Gotta keep the girls happy, Aryu. Is that you or Zenjutsu talking? The Quincy asked, knowing about Ichigo's Zanpakuto. Me, but just to shut him up. Ichigo answered. He was both ecstatic and pissed because I didn't try to cop a feel. Boobs and butts. Big boobs and nice butts. Right there. And you didn't go for it. His sword yelled at him. I am not forgiving you until you have sex with one of them. At least, yeah. He says that because he's my hollow he's also my instincts. Ichigo said, trying to make conversation and ignore his sword spirit, which is Ethan mate. Primal instincts. Aryu guessed. At least someone gets it. Zenjutsu said. Replace eating with fighting and that sounds right. Ichigo said. But enough fun, you felt it too, right? The conversation took a more serious tone that even gave Keigo pause as the attention shifted before Chad brought Keigo back to his story. Yeah, 2 strong Ryatsu signatures appeared in the city this morning. Aryu confirmed what his cousin was getting at. Dad was right. Soul Society finally sent someone. Any appearance and sudden disappearance of Amino's Grand Hollow was enough to warrant the attention of the Godai 13. Rukia has overstayed her role in Karakura, and they've come to get her. She sat in the tree, pensively staring into the sky in contemplation. She can't stay with Ichigo and the Kurosakis anymore. Isshin would definitely be put on trial for abandoning his post and Ichigo would be executed for taking her powers, not to mention the others that displayed their powers. She needed to get out of there for their own sakes, or the guilt would destroy her if anything happened to them because of her. "Hey Rukia," she heard one of her classmates call out to her. "Why don't you join us for lunch?" It was the tanned one, Mahana, she recalled, with the other girls that Tatsuki and Orihime were friends with. She did so reluctantly, needing to continue her cover for the rest of the day before she made her move. They sat in a circle, calmly eating their meals, until Mahana brought up the #1 gossip subject among teenage girls. "Hey, can I ask you something? Do you have a crush on Ichigo?" she asked, making Rukia spew out the juice she was drinking in response. "That's a maybe, but what is your relationship with him?" "Family, friends, that's all," Tatsuki said quickly, going with the story Ichigo told her after they were done making out. Mahana, the petite Mikairu, scolded her friend. "That's not something you just ask straight out like that." "I don't see why not, everyone wanted to ask that," she defended. "I didn't want to ask that," Mikairu said, trying to steer the conversation away from the boy still was afraid of. "What's your problem with him anyway?" Tatsuki asked. "I just think he's scary looking is all," she said, embarrassed by such childish reasoning. "Sure, he looks intimidating, but he's also really gentle," Tatsuki said, smiling in remembrance of how he still held her tenderly that night she yelled at him. She just melted in those strong arms of his. "He's a real tender lover too," Orihime said, completely without shame. "He's such a great kisser after one lesson." Everyone else stared at the airhead in surprise, or shock in Chizuru's case, as Orihime blushed and giggled. "He tasted so good too." Tatsuki only let out an irritated sigh. "Yeah, I can vouch for that," Tatsuki admitted, though she suspected it was because of everyone swapping spit in that makeout. "You mean?" Ryo asked, being the first to come to her senses as the stoic one of the group. "Yep, Ichigo's our boyfriend," Tatsuki declared in defeat of having been exposed. Orihime just nodded, happily declaring her relationship with the strawberry. "And if Rukia wants in this club, she needs our permission," she said, surprising everyone again. Rukia couldn't help but imagine being one of Ichigo's girlfriends. She started thinking about it while Chizuru went crazy about her hime being defiled, and if she couldn't have Orihime's first kiss, she'd settle for her virginity. Needless to say, everyone was trying to restrain Chizuru after that. Rukia just went off with her imagination about being Ichigo's lover, complimenting her, praising her skills, holding her in his arms, kissing. "Looks like Kuchiki's a bit of a perv," Mahana said, tickling Chizuru's stomach while Tatsuki had her in a headlock. Rukia wiped away the small bit of blood dripping from her nose as she tried to deny the notion. The day passed by simply after that. She ran. She had to run as far away as possible. Keep them safe, don't let them share her burden. They were just there for shelter. She didn't care about any of them, not about the girls in high school, not the Kurosakis, and definitely not Ichigo. That's what she wanted to believe anyway. She liked them, she enjoyed her time with them, she didn't want them in danger. She knew Ichigo was powerful, but she still didn't want him to fight against Soul Society. She had one time been of the belief that he was equal to a captain, but he had only years of training and experience, where captains have centuries. It would be foolish of him to fight one, so she decided to run for their sake, but it hurt her to leave without a goodbye. "Am I getting too attached to this world?" she asked, unaware of the two bearing down on her. "Yes," she heard a familiar voice ring out. She stopped in her tracks to look at the man that's hunted her down. "You've broken quite a severe law, Rukia." He had a red ponytail and tribal tattoos, dressed as a soul reaper with a badge on his arm. "Renji?" she asked in disbelief, wondering if it was her old friend. "Renji Aberai." He dropped down, swinging his blade as her, making her jump back and eject from her gigi. "At least you still have some powers, and you're not lax enough to drop your guard completely," he complimented, raising to his full height. "Now call him Rukia, the man that stole your powers." Rukia stayed in a guarded stance, ready to run if need be. "Why do you think I lost my powers to a human?" she defended. "Maybe I got badly injured and didn't want to shame Oni-sama by showing weakness." "If you're going with that argument, then you shouldn't lie," Renji retorted. "Should she, Captain Kuchiki?" Rukia froze, feeling a very familiar, very ominous presence behind her. She turned to see him, wearing that scarf and hair ornaments, the Kuchiki clan head. "Byakuya Oni-sama," she shuddered out, feeling terrified. "Rukia," he said simply, watching his lieutenant attack her again as she dodged again. "You know it's a crime to grant your powers to a human," Renji said. "We have orders to execute him." He prepared for his next attack. "Now call him Rukia. We'll capture you and he will die, so don't try to defend him." He settled into his stance. "This time, my next attack will be serious. I have nothing to worry about then," someone said before a rock the size of a baseball hit Renji in the face, breaking his visor and leaving a few cuts. "Because if you needed to get serious against her in that state," he said, jumping down and revealing himself, "then I'll have no problems against you." Who the hell are you? Renji growled at the orange-haired man. Ichigo Kurosaki, he declared fearlessly, the human you're looking for. He was watching over the city, waiting silently, so still one would think him asleep. Already in his Shinigami state with 3 red ribbons in his hand, sensing and waiting. He felt Rukia run off, writing only a letter to let him know her plans, run as far as she could to spare his family the wrath of Soul Society. But he made a promise to help her and he keeps his word. Now here he was, with his spirit sense keeping track of the 3 other Soul Reapers and their spirit ribbons in hands to increase that accuracy. They finally met and he moved, disappeared from his perch in an instant when the first strike was made. He found them, 2 Shinigami, attacking Rukia from the 6th division judging from that captain's Haori. He grabbed a rock and threw it at the attacking red head. Who the hell are you? He asked after Ichigo jumped down. Ichigo Kurosaki, the human you're looking for. He told the irate Renji. So you're the human that stole Rukia's powers. The Soul Reaper growled. By accident? Yes, Ichigo admitted. Your point. Renji charged at Ichigo, swinging his Zanpakuto down with furious strike after strike. Ichigo turned his blade to a more normal size in order to throw off his opponent, should the need arise. You're dead, Renji growled, slamming his blade against Ichigo's in an attempt to kill the man who gave his best friend a death sentence. Byakuya watched in silence, analyzing this newcomer as his subordinate attacked. Years of experience let him know who was going to win this fight. This is the one that slew those Minos, he questioned as the 2 got into a blade lock. Renji, this battle was over before it even began. Here's what'll happen. Renji growled with an angry smirk, furious at the human before him and furious at his inability to try and save Rukia from her fate. Orders were orders. You'll die, Rukia gets her powers back, and then she'll. He was interrupted when Ichigo twisted the blades and thrust his blade's hilt into Renji's chin, making him bite his tongue. Didn't anyone ever tell you to shut up in the middle of a fight? Ichigo asked, calm and collected as Renji grasped his mouth in pain. You bast. He was about to yell, but Ichigo was already in front of Byakuya. Hello, Captain, Ichigo greeted, almost politely, to the noble who looked at the human with a calm expression. Kuchiki, Captain Byakuya Kuchiki, he responded, still trying to read the young human. Thank you, Ichigo said before preparing to explain what happened. At least he's making an effort it seems, thought the noble, a little happy someone is trying to save his sister. Here's what happened. I've been spiritually aware since I was a kid. Apparently one of my ancestors was a Soul Reaper and I learned most of the important stuff from hand-me-down knowledge. He explained, not telling the full story. From there I prepared to fight hollows to protect my friends and family. When I finally had the means, I used something that would absorb enough Raizhi to allow me to change into a Shinigami. Rukia simply became a casualty and I've been helping her as a way to make up for her situation. He raised his blade to block another strike from Renji. Do you think this changes the situation? He roared in anger at a child humiliating him. He's a rude one, wouldn't you say so? Ichigo asked the captain, not sparing a glance at his attacker. Quite, he agreed, giving Renji a look to tell him to back off. His lieutenant reluctantly obeyed. So that is the story, more or less, Ichigo admitted. What happens now? We'll still have to take Rukia in, with you as a witness. Byakuya answered. Maybe this will lighten her sentence, but I'll have to die, Ichigo said, knowing from what his teachers said about the judicial system of Soul Society. Very likely. He looked to Renji again, who took the signal to continue and made a swing. He stabbed through Ichigo's back before it disappeared and he received a hard kick to his side. Sorry, but I'm not in favor of dying just yet. He apologized, but I'll make a promise. Renji wins, I go willingly. He loses, I don't, he said, face to face with the captain. I have no doubt anymore about the reports of you slaying those Minos Grand. Byakuya said, knowing this battle would end in Ichigo's victory. But Renji needed an attitude adjustment. Go ahead, I will not stand for this. Renji growled. Roar. Zabumaru, he said, wiping a hand over his blade, letting it transform into a 6-segmented blade with sharp protrusions. The fight seemed on hold as both sides waited for the other to move. Rukia stood by her brother, knowing and accepting her fight, but silently hoping Ichigo would survive. Well, Renji finally growled. Ichigo took a second to glance between his own blade and Renji's. Guessing at what the lieutenant meant, Ichigo finally allowed his blade to grow to the matching size of Zabumaru. Happy? He asked, confused. Renji gawked in surprise, thinking that no Shikai could be so worthless as to just be a size increase. Byakuya, on the other hand, reevaluated the hybrid as he's shown a level of control only captains used. What scared the noble was the possibility was that Ichigo still didn't have full control of his Ryatsu. That's your Shikai? Renji asked, again annoyed at the whelp. What? Ichigo responded dumbly. I don't have Shikai. Renji couldn't believe this. Then you're a fool, he yelled, swinging his whip-like sword, Ichigo defending against the hard swings with visible effort. A fake Soul Reaper who doesn't even know his own Zanpakuto's name. He broke Ichigo's guard and made for the killing blow. The fool, the Kuchikis said at the same time. Rukia, in sorrow for her friend, and Byakuya for his rash subordinate. Ichigo swung his blade, striking the top segment of Zabumaru, with the resulting shockwave breaking the connection to the hilt. Renji could only gawk as his blade fell apart in a mess, leaving only his hilt and blade base, before feeling himself getting stabbed. I said, I don't have Shikai, Ichigo said, Zenjutsu again in two forms with a katana in one hand and a tanto knife buried in Renji's side. Because Zenjutsu won't let me use Shikai while in this state, using Rukia's powers as a link to my own. He removing the dagger from Renji as the lieutenant dropped to his knees, blood spilling out of the hole in his side and staining his Shihakuso. Your arrogance is your undoing. He was about to swing again before stopping. Curiously, he reached up to his chest, directly above his soul chain and soul sleep, before feeling it soaked in his blood. He pulled open his robes to see the bleeding holes in his chest. Behind Renji was Byakuya, sheathing his blade. HMPH, he grunted, more mad at himself for dropping his guard so easily. You won, he said simply, Ichigo dropping to his knees as his strength left him. But I was still free to act. He grabbed his subordinate and helped him to Rukia, who began healing her old friend. You will lose your powers, but you will survive, he declared to the boy, lying on the ground in a small pool of blood, unaware of the boy's healing. Live you life, die, then come to Soul Society, Byakuya said, opening the spirit gate to Soul Society. You may make a fine Soul Reaper after all, he said, preparing to walk through, with Renji and Rukia in tow. He barely took another step before turning, saying, Bakudo number 81. Danku, creating a transparent barrier between them and the rising Ichigo, feeling danger in the boy. Zian-G-Tsu, Ichigo yelled, unleashing a black and blue Getsuga against the barrier, simply the result of activating a first transformation. Byakuya was in shock of the boy. How can he have this much power? He questioned before shoving his sister and lieutenant through the portal, shutting it, and dodging to avoid the blast that finally cracked through his Kaido barrier. Mostly he was fine, his arm was charred and broken. Sorry, Zenjutsu was pretty mad at you for that sneak attack, Ichigo said, slowly rising to his feet, looking pale and tired. But I should thank you, he told the captain, who was grasping his arm in pain. You severed my link to Rukia's powers, and finally balanced my own. The two injured Shinigami stood on their feet, watching the other closely. Neither of us are in any condition to keep fighting. So let me say this. 2 weeks, I'll be in Soul Society for 2 things. Saving Rukia, and I need to talk to the Captain Commander. Byakuya glared at the youth for his display of arrogance, but knew that he was in no condition to fight. Very well, he said, opening another Senkamen. 2 weeks it shall be. Leaving it at that while he needed to reach Squad 4 as soon as possible. Ichigo straightened up, feeling himself be restored as his regeneration finally kicked in. Finally, he shook himself to get the feeling back into his limbs. Now, how to break the news to everyone else. Preparations for the Soul Society. Well, that happened, Ichigo said, laying on one of the many towers that inhabited his world. After the fight with Renji and Byakuya, Ichigo made his way back to the Urahara Shoten. When he got there, however, he collapsed on the floor and brought himself to his inner world. By his side was the massive Kyber blade with cloth wrapping around the tang. No hilt, no guard, just a bare blade. I wonder what the explanation for this is. Well, it's still not a real Zanpakuto, if that's what you're wondering. He heard a warped speech that mimicked his own. He leaned forward to see a white copy of himself with black and gold eyes. Hey there, King, Zenjutsu said, smiling a predatory grin. Ichigo raised an eyebrow in confusion. What is this anyway? He asked, sitting up across from his blade. I know it's comprised of Raizi, but I thought I couldn't do that whole release stuff. Your blade is manipulated by Raizi, given form through your hollow, and channels the purification of a Soul Reaper, said the aged wisdom of his Quincy powers, appearing next to Ichigo. That's all the explanation I'm getting, isn't it? Ichigo asked. Best guess we're going with, Zenjutsu said, helping his wielder to his feet. And it's not exactly Shikai. It's you being able to use more of your power, like faster healing and Zeros, the elder said. So why did I still pass out? Looking at his hollow side who gave him a deadpan look. Because you heal from injuries, Zenjutsu explained. Damage remains and did lose a lot of blood before it finally kicked in. The limit of your healing is recreating major organs, so avoid any large blasts. We should also build up your endurance and damage tolerance, the elders in Jetsu said. However, before that, you need to talk with everyone. Storming Soul Society alone is insane, and making reservations for the party isn't exactly smart either. Zangetsu scolded. And speaking of a party, yours just showed up, he said before slapping Ichigo back into the outside. Several people occupied the quaint little store of the scientist, some old friends of his while others were his students. They sat and waited for Ichigo to recover from his confrontation with Byakuya. The children believed it a dirty move while the adults recognized the truth, a golden opportunity taken. Byakuya was a prideful man and it would not do to fail a mission, no matter the terms of the bet. Tatsuki glared at her boyfriend, wanting to chastise him for recklessness while Orihime wanted to help him recover. Laru recognized that the time was coming to meet the captain commander of the Shinigami and prepare for the incoming war with the Quincy. Chad. Everyone was busy trying to convince him that it wasn't his fault for Ichigo's condition, that he did not break his vow to his friend. Another 10 minutes passed before the object of their discussion finally awoke. Note to self, need to Ichigo started saying before taking a fist to his face. What were you thinking, you idiot? Tatsuki yelled as Yoruichi held her back, Orihime already healing Ichigo. Why would you go off against the enemy without any backup and expect to come out unscathed? Because I told Rukia I would talk to them, Ichigo yelled back, already coming back to full because of the healing shield. And I told them the mostly true story, he admitted. Considering the circumstances, you may have bought her more time, Isshin said, praising his son. Good job, son. And since we have a way into Soul Society already ready, we can focus on your training, Urahara said cheerfully. But if you thought we were rough before, a dark aura covered the room as Yoruichi gave a predatory glare and grin, then you have no idea what you're in for. A silent, grim calm settled over the youths. That massive swarm of hollows was minor league, nothing to really write home about. Now, things were going to be for keeps. There he was standing with his colleague captains of the Godai 13. An awkward menagerie of individuals of various personalities and mindsets. He had delivered his report to the aged man in front of him, the leader of all Shinigami, Captain Commander Genryusai Yamamoto. Now Byakuya could only hope for a favorable outcome. I have no doubts that if execution could have been avoided, and I kept better control of my lieutenant, he would be standing here with us serving as a witness. Byakuya finished, returning to his place among the captains. He didn't mention the last thing that Ichigo had told him, something reserved only for the commander. He saw the one-eyed and battle-scarred barbarian that led the 11th squad bear a toothy grin in desire of the fight the boy promised, while the deranged scientist that commanded the 12th looked intrigued. He supposed that was better. The last thing he needed was that psychopath, Mayuri Kuretsuchi, ranting about how the Gigi was destroyed by the boy when his powers came back. This is a most curious development, spoke Yamamoto, in a gravelly deep tone that rang with power and experience. This may require further investigation. If she did not truly break the laws, then the boy will have to be brought here to face charges. Some would deny the claims made and would push for the execution of Rukia, but the new report opened possibilities that they couldn't help but ponder on. A descendant of a soul reaper that managed to unlock his latent ability. This required more evidence. No one motioned to push for Rukia's death. Dismissed, he declared with a slam of his cane. The captains moved to return to their various divisions. However, Byakuya stayed to speak with the commander. Sir, it's been a while since you were at the Kuchiki compound, correct? Byakuya asked his aged superior. How about you take a break and have some tea with me? Yamamoto took a moment to consider. I think I may take you up on that offer, young man, Yamamoto decided, giving Kuchiki leave to start preparations. Well, aren't you the generous one? A sly tone mocked the noble Kuchiki. He turned to see a silver-haired fox-like man talking to him. Or maybe you're trying to butter him up to plea for your sister's freedom. Byakuya simply watched the taunting fox with contempt. Don't be absurd, he told his colleague. If Rukia is guilty, I'll kill her myself. My grandfather and the commander were old friends. It's only right to tend to that bond, he said before walking off. I have to make sure only the commander and those he deems trustworthy hear this, he thought to himself, remembering the resolve he saw in Ichigo. Like, he wasn't an enemy. Ichigo felt sick. The day went by with nothing changing. The people still talked the same, acted the same, were the same. The only difference was a solitary empty desk in the classroom. The only evidence of Rukia Kuchiki ever existing in their lives. That and the memories of the spiritually aware. Now that classes were finally over, the team Ichigo had could finally move on to begin their training. Going to find Kuchiki-san, aren't you? Ichigo heard, surprised by his friend Keigo who sneaked up behind him. Keigo was giving his friend a hopeful smile as he explained an unasked question. I don't know when it happened, but I was able to see spirits and I saw you with her a few times. He gave Ichigo a pat on the back. It's not just me either. Mizuhiro and Chizuru can see them too. He wrapped his arms around Ichigo in a friendly hug. Just promise you guys will come back safely, he whispered. Keigo, Ichigo muttered, patting his friend's arms. If you don't let go, I'm breaking your arms. Keigo snorted out, but he got the message. Don't worry, we'll be fine. Catch you later, Ichigo, he yelled out. Mizuhiro is taking me with him and his 10 lady friends to Hawaii. He cheered while skipping away. Well, I guess he deserves a break, Ichigo said, getting up to meet with Chad. There were a few people he had to introduce the giant to for his training. He took a deep breath, aware of what was going to happen. His father would likely disapprove of him going to Soul Society, wanting him to keep his mind focused on the goal of helping his cousin, or that the case he would allow it. But Oryu still harbored a hate for Shinigami after Soken's death. Oryu was still scared that he would abandon his friends simply for the sake of vengeance. Both father and son knew this, that made the decision difficult. I expect a full report when you get back, Oryu, Ruken said, finishing his evaluation of his son sitting across from him. He rose from his seat while Oryu looked at his father in surprise. Your actions in Soul Society will determine how you and I proceed with your training, he said as he walked to his bookcase, shelves filled row by row with medical and surgical books and case studies, except for one solitary box on the top of it all. He took it from the dusty resting place and passed it to his son. This is, Oryu exclaimed. It was about as long as his forearm with a sandy color that was quite light with a seal tied taut around it. I trust you know how to use it, Ruken asked his son, who nodded in affirmation. But this is still old Quincy methods, Oryu protested. Shouldn't I bring my purification cross instead? Ruken shook his head at his son. I'm not saying don't bring that with you, he firmly scolded his son. I'm telling you to fight with the Sanrei glove. Were you fighting hollows, I'd insist on the first, but you are fighting Shinigami, Ruken explained. Fight with that and you'll have enough strength to do what must be done. He gave his son leave to go and train. As Oryu was walking out the door, his father asked an oft-repeated question between the two. Why do you fight, Oryu? Oryu paused, knowing the answer but feeling his own resolve being tested. He didn't care for Rukia. He was still angry with the Soul Reapers, but he knew why he fought. To help Ichigo, to protect the balance of the worlds. I fight to help my comrades, he said before leaving for the basement of the hospital, the hardest place to manipulate Raizhi. Ichigo remembered the last time he stood in front of that large building of wood. Something so simple, so plain, no one would recognize it or what was hidden inside. It was just after Chad's own powers manifested. Ichigo's hollow power grew more and more chaotic, necessitating this visit to others close to him. They eventually helped to teach him balance as they learned from him to understand their own powers more. These were the people best able to help Chad. You sure about this, Ichigo? Sato asked his friend, looking at the warehouse in a disappointed manner. These guys will be able to help me. Your powers seem more like a hollow's, Chad, Ichigo explained. We would have brought you here sooner, but it wasn't exactly the same. He turned to his large shield with a confident grin. So until we manage to find anyone that believes they can help you, trust me on this, he said before narrowly dodging a sandal being thrown at him. You think you can just show up without calling dumbass? Yelled an irate tomboyish little girl in a red tracksuit. You'd better get ready for a major, as she was shoved out of the way as a white bullet with green hair tackled Ichigo. Berry-tan, I missed you, the hyperactive girl exclaimed, hugging Ichigo tightly. Mashiro, he said, pointing at the girls for his friend, and Hiyori, just some of the new friends you're going to make. Yeah, sorry about that, Ichigo, someone said, so casually that you wouldn't know someone was being cuddled to death while trying to dodge Hiyori swinging her sandals at him. Just wanted to see if your awareness was still up to par. The yellow-haired man was then hit with Hiyori being flung at him like a baseball. Screw you, Shinji. Ichigo got up and made his way inside the warehouse, Mashiro still clinging to his back cheering Horsey excitedly. Ooh, Chad started, slowly following after Ichigo. Just ignore her, Chad, he said as they entered the warehouse. Say hello to the Vizards. The more dignified ones anyway, Ichigo said, bringing attention to the others. The large, green-suited Hachigen, the black-suited Rose, the silver-haired Kensei, and the star Afro Love ... who was laughing at something in his manga. Mostly, I guess. So this is the guy you were talking about? Rose asked, coming down to meet Ichigo face to face. He seems to be a man of good music tastes. You can get that from just a look, Ichigo asked as Kensei pried his former lieutenant of his back. He has that special air about him. he said, waving his arms around like he was conducting an orchestra. Tell me, Sato-san, do you play guitar? Yes, I do, Chad replied. How wonderful, Rose said, actually excited. We should play together sometime. He's not here for guitar lessons, Kensei yelled after he was done scolding his childish partner. He's here for training. He walked up to the giant, sizing him up. Show us. Chad took a moment to raise his right arm and summoned his powers. A black oily film covered the entirety of his right arm before solidifying into the familiar form. Definitely hollow in nature, said Hiyori, coming up out of nowhere. She got back into her old roots as Kisuke's lieutenant when he created the Research and Development Institute of Soul Society. Being the former head researcher gave her some helpful skills. If I had to guess, you were born with these powers and prolonged exposure to Ichigo. She turned to yell mockingly at the hybrid, who still couldn't control his Ryatsu, I might add. Screw you, monkey, Ichigo yelled back. Kensei glared at them to stop squabbling before things got out of hand. Anyway, because Ichigo has hollow like Ryuzi himself, it helped awaken these dormant powers within, Hiyori said, finishing her analysis and feeling a little proud of herself. Kisuke already figured that out, Ichigo said, causing her to twitch in anger. You wanna go, you freaking jackass? I'll beat you from 2. Hiyori, Shinji said, firmly. Hiyori actually stopped and looked at her de facto leader. How best do you think we can train him? Hiyori took a second to think. Fight us with our masks on, I guess, she said after a few seconds. The best way was probably to train in Hukomondo, but there was no way to get there. The Vizards learned many new techniques after Ichigo got them to come to terms with their hollows, but they couldn't get to the land of the hollows. I'll go first, Love said, getting up from his seat to lead Chad down into the training basement. Ichigo stayed behind with Hachigen. Hey Hachai, he said, getting the barrier master's attention. I need something. Yes, Ichigo, he said, respectfully of the boy. I need to learn one of your barrier spells, Ichigo said, in a serious tone, which was ruined when he finally noticed an absence of a certain girl. Where's Lisa? Went to get the latest porn, Shinji said, following the others into the basement. Why am I not surprised? Yoruichi watched as Oriheim and Tatsuki traded blows against one another. Originally, she wanted Oriheim to focus on gaining more control over her shields, but Tatsuki vouched for Oriheim being a natural martial artist. The results were speaking for themselves as she proved herself a very graceful fighter. Yoruichi decided to focus on improving their martial arts while tossing in their special powers as well. Tatsuki slammed a fiery fist against Oriheim's shield while she sent Tsubaki to knock Tatsuki off her feet, who managed to recover by hand standing with a quick twist and striking against the shield again. Separate, Yoruichi yelled as they jumped away from each other, Oriheim jumping onto her Sanden Kesshun while Tatsuki managed a weak Shunpo jump. That's good. Take 5. Oriheim was swift and graceful while Tatsuki was strong and fast. You two are doing pretty well for novices, but we can't afford that with Soul Reaper captains and lieutenants. By the way, Sensei, Tatsuki spoke up from drinking her water, there's a karate tournament coming up that I promised to go to. Can we continue doing that? Yoruichi gave a dry look to her disciple. You realize that would be child's play for you, right? The cat-like woman said disapprovingly. Yeah, but I'd like the recognition for Ichigo to brag. I'm dating the strongest high schooler in the nation, she said, doing an impression of her boyfriend that seemed more like Isshin. Yoruichi could only chuckle at that thought. Fine, we'll go, she said, acquiescing to her student's desires. But you better win. You hear me, Arisawa? Yes, sensei, she yelled confidently. She and Oriheim got ready for the next bout when curiosity caught their sensei. By the way, she said almost teasingly, there's a fireworks festival next week and you'll have that time free to rest for the mission. Any plans of romance with a certain strawberry? She had a mischievous smile which only grew as she noticed a pair of luminescent blushes. We have plans, yes, Oriheim said hesitantly, clearly embarrassed and nervous. Oh my, Yoruichi thought, having an idea of what they were planning. Aren't you two the naughty ones? Byakuya nursed his damaged arm while Yamamoto processed the information he just told him. Even after seeing Captain Unohana of the 4th Division, he still felt the burns of Ichigo's attack. He remembered facing down the boy, the force of that attack, and the way he held himself. In 2 weeks, the old Shinigami finally spoke. That boy will come to Soul Society himself, to save Rukia Kuchiki, and to speak with me. The bold and brashness of the claim reminded the aged man of a former captain that disappeared some 20 years ago. I must admit, I am curious as to what that brat would have to talk to me about. If what I think is correct, he's been trained by the exiled captains and lieutenants, he said, letting his experience try to determine what the boy's aim is. You think he plans to destroy Sarete? Byakuya asked calmly. Not at all. If that was his intention, he would not have told you anything, the old man said, stroking his long beard as he contemplated the strangeness of what was happening in Soul Society. The main governing body of Soul Society, the Central 46, were oddly insistent on Rukia being executed by the end of the month, and the method of choice was odd as well. Using the Sakyoku for Rukia is excessive, and if she did it to save Ichigo's family, then her punishment should be imprisonment. There is more to this than we think, the noble asked, surprised at the possibility of the Godai 13 or the Central 46 being manipulated to use excessive force on a dutiful Soul Reaper. Possibly, the old man stated, rising from his seat. We'll hold off the execution until this Kurosaki comes to Soul Society. I'll have him found and monitored in secret. When they come here, I want them captured alive with Ichigo brought to me. I will hear what he has to say. Yamamoto began to walk to his division, enjoying the fine day they found themselves in. Thank you for the tea, Captain Kuchiki. It was morning and Yuzu was getting breakfast ready, a breakfast for 3 as her brother was still gone. Karin was sitting at the table, even more down than her usual stoicism. The mood was clear, they were worried and missed their brother. Karin, Yuzu started. Ichigo will be fine, right? TCH, yeah, Karin said with forced enthusiasm. Didn't you watch him wipe out all those hollows? Yeah, but Dad says any captain can do that, Yuzu said. Some are stronger than others and there are other Soul Reapers that close to captain levels. Karin was about to say something else when she noticed her sister was trembling. She got up and walked over to Yuzu, who immediately latched onto her twin and started crying. I'm scared for Ichigo. I want to help him but I can't. Yeah, Karin replied, hugging her kinder twin in a gentle embrace. I know the feeling, Yuzu. You're worrying over nothing. They heard their father say as he came into the room. I know my son and he's going to be fine. He's strong, he said, generating several large balls of compressed rice floating above his hands, just like his parents. He smiled, feeling pride in his son and the progress he's shown. Keep up, he suddenly yelled, gently tossing the spirit spheres at his girls who immediately cheered up and started bouncing them around. Keep getting stronger, Ichigo. I'll keep them safe while you go to Soul Society. Entering Soul Society. The day had finally come. 2 weeks of preparations and now it was time to put it to the test. It was after the fireworks festival. One last day of fun, one last day of safety, one last day before they went out to save Rukia. Ichigo softly stroked his little sister's heads as they rested on his lap, wanting to spend a little more time with their big brother. It took some stern and rather mean lectures from family and friends to remind the twins that they were more of a liability at their level, so they settled for staying with their brother for one more night, which Ichigo obliged. It wasn't until midnight that Kon, in his stuffed lion body, came up to Ichigo and exposed the opening to his back to let Ichigo know that it was time. Wordlessly, he took the small green pill and ejected into his Soul Reaper body. He gave a subtle nod to Kon, letting him know to take care of his sisters before leaving the house, where his father was waiting for him. This is a really dangerous mission you're going on, boy, Isshin said gravely. Some of the captains have been there for almost a millennium, with 2 being original members. They are powerful and dangerous. Ichigo hugged his father, stopping him from continuing. Relax, you old goat, he told his eccentric old man. If anything, I inherited your tenacity. I won't die so easily. Isshin snorted out his amusement. Damn right, boy, he said, returning his son's embrace. After a second, he separated and pulled out a letter. Take this to the Shiba household, they should help you. Oh yeah, Ichigo took the letter and pocketed it in his shihakusho. My relatives on your side, he said with some dread. Each one as hot-headed and bombastic as the last, Isshin said with a grin, making Ichigo sink lower. But Kyukaku manages to keep a lid on them all, he said, returning to his serious side. Last I heard, we fell out of high standing but we're still able to operate, so entering Serete shouldn't be too difficult. Then it's off to the big white tower called the Repentant Cell. Isshin nodded as his boy guessed from the Soul Society trivia he was taught, while avoiding as many captains as possible. But you are going to talk to the old man while you're there, right? Isshin clarified, a little nervous about his son meeting Yamamoto. The old captain held the law in the highest regard, and a bunch of children spitting on those laws will not sit well with him. Gonna have to, Dad. He needs to know, Ichigo said, remembering the stories he heard of the monster called Ihwech. Everyone made him despise the self-proclaimed god more and more. Faced with him, the old man might listen to reason. He then walked off, ready for the mission that would be his first real test in a long time. The teens slowly gathered outside of the shop, waiting for their allies to gather. Chad was first to arrive in a sleeveless t-shirt with a magenta line going down the left side and black pants. Next was Ichigo with Orihime and Tatsuki wearing a pink t-shirt with track pants and a gray t-shirt with doobie pants respectively. Yoruichi, so how big was he, was following them very discreetly. She then proceeded to interrogate and embarrass the poor girls until they told Yoruichi everything about when they were alone together. Why should it matter? Tatsuki yelled out while Ichigo and Chad ignored them. Despite how much Urahara wanted details, Tatsuki didn't want to go into details of the mindless mating, preferring the romanticized idea of the first time. Because I want some myself, the dark-skinned noble said unashamed. The girl's first instinct was to go to their boyfriend and latch onto him, not to steal him away. She reassured her students, just to relieve some tensions. The girls still glared but decided to continue this talk later. I thought we were going to invade Soul Society, not to discuss sex lives, someone said rather crudely. Many blushing faces turned to see Aryu in the same Quincy getup but with a short cape and a belt with several silver rods with rings on top. Don't test her, Aryu, Ichigo warned. She's quite the multitasker. He took a quick glance at Aryu's gloved hand. The seal schneiders I understand, but are you sure about that? Ichigo asked, not pointing out anything specific. Don't worry, Ichigo, Aryu said, offering a rare smile. I promise not to do anything foolish. Urahara can remove it later. He talked with Urahara the day after he finished the training with the samurai glove and gave him the chance to study it. If everything goes well, he should be able to remove it with no repercussions. Besides, I need all the advantages I can get to fight these Shinigami. Now that we're all here and accounted for, Kisuke said. Let's get to business. The group followed him down to the massive training hall he had set up. Tessai already waiting down there. No matter how many times I see it, this place still astounds me, Tatsuki said with a hint of nostalgia, remembering her spars with Ichigo in the Rocky Arena. I know what you mean, Orihime chirped. It's so cool. Your reactions are so kind. Tessai cried out, tears crawling down his face that people appreciated the hard work that went into the place. All right, enough, Urahara called out before clapping and summoning paper-covered blocks that formed a doorframe. Now let's get to what you need to know, the scientist said, getting suddenly serious. Skipping the technical explanation, this door will give you spirit bodies you need to enter Soul Society. Through this you will enter the Dangai, the realm in between this world and Soul Society. Keep moving and avoid the Kuryu, which captures spiritual bodies. If my calculations are right, which is always, the cleaner should have made its run yesterday, so all you have to do is charge forward. You have 4 minutes to reach Soul Society. Himself and Tessai proceeded to open the door to the realm of the dead. This place should land us in West Ruken. There we will have to go to the Shiba house. Yoruichi yelled out in her cat form. Ready, now, she called as they all jumped into the realm beyond the living. It has been 2 weeks since Rukia Kuchiki's arrest. The old leader of the Shinigami announced to his 13 captains. In those 2 weeks we have monitored the Kurosaki boy and continued the investigation. He called out, sparing a slight glance to few of his captains that he had the utmost trust in. Captain Soifon, Kiritsuchi, what have you found? The deranged scientist stepped forward to go first. From our surveillance, he seemed to really frequent 4 areas, the skeletal man said with traces of annoyance. However, when he heads to these areas his presence actually seems to disappear. Obviously Kaido, but we've been unable to identify the source. Every time my men have checked it out, they've been unable to find anything. The slender Soifon said. He's skilled, sir. Obviously a danger, she said before alarms began to ring out. Attention, red alert, intruders detected in West Ruken. The alarm called out, surprising most of the captains in attendance. Kenpachi looked ecstatic at the prospect of a challenge while the blind Black Tausen seemed angered along with Soifon. The young Hitsugaya was shocked while most everyone else seemed to begin thinking on their next course of action. So it begins, the ancient man thought. What drives you to come to meet me, boy? Prepare yourselves, he announced to the assembled captains. This is likely Kurosaki and his allies. I want them captured alive. The ever-smiling Jin Ikamaru stepped forward. One of the captains Yamamoto did not trust. I'll go greet our little intruders, he said, walking away from the group. It should be interesting how things proceed, he said before waving off lazily. The challenge, Ichigo and his friends appeared above the sky, dropping down onto the land that was the afterlife. The collection of empowered humans scanned the glistening white city on one side and the darker, less impressive wood and stone of the area they were at. Where are we? Tatsuki asked while everyone continued to scan their surroundings. Is this really Soul Society? This is indeed Soul Society, the masculine voice of Yoruichi's feline form answered. This is the Rukin district, the place with the greatest freedom but the poorest conditions. Ichigo continued, remembering what he was told a while ago. Apparently the higher the district number, the worse it gets. He turned to the white city on the other side. And that should be the Serete, home of the wealthy nobles and Shinigami. So when we die, Tatsuki started, we either turn into mindless starving beasts hellbent on devouring others or just live in a facsimile of feudal Japan. Seems like it. Oryu replied, sounding rather disappointed. That's it in a nutshell. Yoruichi confirmed. This is the suckiest afterlife ever. Tatsuki deadpanned. The best hope for people is that they have enough Ryatsu to become Shinigami. And even then, it doesn't seem any better because the ones in power don't seem to care. Ichigo said, a little miffed that this was the place he's been sending souls. One life to another that was pretty much the same as the last. Maybe it's not that bad. Orihime said, forcing her usual cheerfulness, trying to make the answer to an age-old question of the afterlife seem less bleak. Chad, launch, Ichigo said to his muscular friend. He nodded as Ichigo jumped toward him and he cupped his hands to give Ichigo a foothold before sending him skyward. Ichigo kept his eyes shut as wind streamed past his body until his ascent ended. He opened his eyes as almost all of the districts lined out in front of him, each one becoming worse than the last. He took a glance to Serete, but was unable to identify any of the squad headquarters. Using his Pesquisa here would just give him a migraine, but he might not have a choice. He had to find the Yamamoto guy. He began to descend back to his friends, managing a small stream of rise beneath his feet to slow his drop. Nope, he said once he hit the ground. Soul Society is the worst afterlife. Rukin gets worse and worse the farther down you get. Only thing that matters is how much Ryatsu and money you have. It certainly wasn't easy, I can tell you that. They heard a teasing tone say. Each member of the group turned their heads to a silver-haired man with a fox-like grin. He wore the Shinigami Shihakusho with a white haori over it with a diamond pattern. A clear sign of a captain. Hello, he greeted cheerfully, something Orihime was all too happy to return. Hi there, she cheered. Who are you? What a cute girl, he said amused. I am Jin Ikamaru, captain of Squad 3. This is bad. Yoruichi thought to herself. Ichigo and Oryu are the only other ones I'm sure that can fight captains, but they have no idea what he is capable of. She noticed Ichigo stepping forward to speak with the man. Ichigo, make me proud. Don't rush in blindly like an idiot. You must be Ichigo Kurosaki, he said, giving his full attention to the hybrid. The commander is interested in meeting you. Feelings mutual, Ichigo said quickly and calmly, trying to get a read on the man before him. You here to take us to him? Did we really warrant an escort from a captain? It's not every day that humans try to invade Soul Society while they're still alive. Jin's hand rested on the hilt of his blade, completely nonchalant and without any trace of violent or ill intentions. Fewer still that could get the drop on Captain Kuchiki like you did. So, yes, you do warrant a captain as escort. Ichigo's instincts flared at that very second, causing him to draw his Zanpakuto at the same time Jin did. Shoot to kill, Shinso. Jin fluidly drew out his short blade and aimed at Ichigo in the same motion. Ichigo barely managed to deflect the attack by a fraction of a second. You will be executed after little Rukia dies, he said menacingly, causing Ichigo to glare as he flash-stepped in front of Ichigo. You are both criminals after all, he said before their blades clashed, causing a small shockwave. 2 sealed blades, a regular katana and a wakizashi. And here I thought I was going to talk to him peacefully. Ichigo grunted, struggling a little against the strength of Jin's blade. Guess that was a pipe dream. Oh, he is interested in you, Ichigo, he said, keeping that taunting grin and showing no exertion on his side. But facts are facts. You stole a Shinigami's power, are trespassing, and no doubt plan on breaking out a criminal. Rukia covered for you, refused to say anything in her defense, and refuses to do anything but sit in her cell. He leaned in and his smirk grew. She's going to die because of you, he sang, making Ichigo glare. You can have your time with the commander, but killing you will be easier after taking you in by. Hado number 1, show, Ichigo quickly said. Jin looked down and saw Ichigo's hand a scant few centimeters from his stomach, which flashed crimson before blasting him back into the Serete, and embedded into a wall. Jin managed to get a look at Ichigo as the dust cleared. Ichigo raised his hand to give Jin the finger. I wonder how this report is gonna go, he said before the spirit wall slammed down and separated the two. You've grown strong, kid, Jin thought as his squad appeared, their worried cries falling on deaf ears as he thought about the boy he was monitoring since his birth. Looks like your estimations were wrong, Aizen. He's stronger. That definitely wasn't Kaido. He vaguely heard his blonde lieutenant say something about broken ribs as he began healing Jin. The commander is going to be pissed about this. That happened, Ichigo thought to himself, flexing his hand. Should have expected this difference between sparring with a captain and fighting one. He shook it a few more times to get the feeling back into it. It was then that he noticed the looming shadow of a giant with a fez and ponytailed sideburns. And now there's this guy. That was quite the display, spiky head. The giant said in a deep masculine tone. It's been ages since someone tried to enter the Serite without a travel pass, and even longer since someone tried to fight a captain, let alone gain a captain's attention. Ichigo looked up to the man as they stared down the other. My name is Jidambo Ikazanka and I am the guardian of this gate. There has been no person to ever come through this gate in the 3 centuries I've guarded it, he said with a smirk. You're the first one to actually make me a little nervous about that thought, and the challenge excites me. Sorry to ruin your fun, pal, Ichigo said, bringing his blade up before sheathing it at his hip. But I have no interest in fighting you, big guy, he told the gatekeeper, shocking the giant man. Instead, could you be so kind as to give me directions? He asked the big guy. My name is Ichigo Shiba. I'm trying to find my clan. Oh, certainly, Jidanbo said, pleasantly surprised. Most nobles and soul reapers look down on us ghetto folk, which is why those that get out try to get stationed here to make sure they are treated right. The Shiba clan are also good to the people of the Rukin districts, he explained before looking closer to Ichigo. How are you related to the Shibas exactly? My father was a branch head of the clan, he said before pulling out Isshin's letter. He told me to give this to Kyukaku. Jidanbo squinted at the letter before he confirmed its legitimacy. All right, you want to head that way, he said, pointing off into the distance. You'll know it when you see a small house with a towering chimney and the banner being held up by arms. Ichigo paused at the description he was given. I would ask if you're kidding, but if they're anything like my dad, I shouldn't be surprised, Ichigo said before turning and leaving. Nice meeting you, Jidanbo. The giant gatekeeper waved back before sitting down as the people came out of hiding. Well, I do remember seeing a house with a giant chimney stack, so we should go there for now, right? The rest said. Unfortunately, that trip was waylaid by the denizens of the Rukin district coming to meet the newcomers. After Yuichi showed up, Chad almost begged to stick around for a bit. What the hell were you thinking? Yamamoto roared at the nearly recovered Jin. Captain Kuchiki made it clear that Kurosaki was willing to listen to reason and speak peacefully. What you did was mark him as an enemy so he'll respond in kind. Jin winced and struggled under the spiritual pressure the head captain was releasing in the room, affecting some of the lesser captains somewhat. Please, hear me out, sir, Jin managed to wheeze out under the ancient man's wrath. Yamamoto relented somewhat to allow the brat a chance to speak. Thank you, sir, he said, getting the air back into his lungs. It has been so long since anything like this happened. It could help to make sure ourselves and our troops don't get rusty, he said, letting a silver-laced forked tongue work its magic. Besides, this will let you see his measure for yourself, whether you think he can be trusted or whatever it is that you have planned. Yamamoto could not deny that he was just a bit tempted to have the boy join the ranks of Soul Society, but guilt of his past actions forbade him from doing so. Depending on what Ichigo says to him, he could have a promising successor if his strength was not an exaggeration. This will not go unpunished, Ikamaru, the old man growled. We have a report saying that the boy claims relation to the Shiba clan, which means they will be using their cannon if he gains their assistance. And knowing that woman, they very likely will. But with the barrier in place, they will probably end up scattered. Inform your squads, I want them captured alive. Dismissed, he announced as the captains dispersed, each one already planning which Ryoka to go after. Looks like I was right. Captain Isshin, I hope your son surprises me, he thought, turning his attention to the bespectacled Aizen helping Jin out. That was a risky move, Aizen whispered to his former lieutenant and trusted ally. Even I thought he was going to kill you. It seems to have worked, Jin responded. Now you just have to wait for them to create a ruckus so you can stage your death and take over the Central 46. Then push for Rukia execution when these Ryoka prove themselves enemies. Aizen smiled harmlessly, completely masking his dark intentions. Banner, Oryu said, identifying the building. Chimney, Chad continued. Hyukaku Shiba. Tatsuki almost laughed out. Arms, Ichigo finished, looking at the bizarre house that his cousins occupied. A sturdy-looking warehouse with giant stone arms holding a banner saying, Kyukaku Shiba with a towering chimney in the back. I know I'm not supposed to judge by appearances, but what the hell? Tatsuki cracked up laughing while Chad and Orihime barely reacted too much, with Yoruichi getting some twisted kick out of Ichigo and Uryu's freak out. Come on, how bad is this compared to what you two have seen? She asked while walking ahead. Uryu, Ichigo called to his cousin. Yeah, he replied. Thanks for being somewhat normal, Ichigo said gratefully. No problem, Ikai. Somewhat normal. Oryu asked, offended. Let's go, Ichigo yelled, dodging the conversation. They got close to the banner when they saw someone wearing a bandana, black vest, with baggy gray pants and matching undershirt, riding a boar with a bunch of goons. Hey, who are you guys? He called out, curious about Ichigo's group, until he saw Ichigo in his Soul Reaper garb. What's a crummy Soul Reaper doing here? He growled, stomping up to Ichigo. I told you to get a change of wardrobe, Ichigo. Oryu called out. I offered to make you a new outfit but you said no. The irate man tried to get Ichigo's attention, but Ichigo felt this talk was more important. I told you, I don't think I could pull off the whole cape thing, Ichigo said, remembering early outfit drafts Oryu made. They'd get in the way of my Zanpakuto and my fighting. Nonsense, Oryu defended. I'd be sure to make it fashionable and functional, not overly long like most people think of capes as. I asked you, the man tried again, until Ichigo grabbed him by his face without even sparing a glance. Hado number 11, Suzuri Raiden, Ichigo recited, electrocuting the man in his hand until he dropped the cartoonishly burned man. It'd probably end up torn up and ruined anyway. You know how I fight, Ichigo said while the man's goons were screaming about Boss Ganju being down. You'd probably spend every other week making me a new cape. I did have designs other than ones with capes, Oryu mumbled in his defense. How dare you? They heard a voice growl out from above. The group looked at the top of the arms to see two men standing atop them, attacking Master Ganju like that. The other said as they dropped in front of Ichigo, Ganju safely away with his underlings trying to bring him back to consciousness. They looked like twins except their color and faces. I, Kagane Hiko, said the yellow-clothed man with the long face. And I, Shirogane Hiko, said the white-clothed man with the cleft chin. Cannot allow you to come any closer, they yelled together. They were both bigger than Chad in height and muscle and were prepared to fight. Leave now or die. Ichigo merely stared at them, not intimidated in the slightest, as he remembered his father telling him about these two, the loyal retainers of the Shiba clan. Told him that with Yoruichi in his letter, those two would end up begging forgiveness if they did something stupid. Sorry, but could you let us in? Ichigo asked, pulling out his Isshin's letter. I have this message from Isshin Shiba for the head of the clan. The twins looked surprised and examined the letter when Yoruichi spoke out. That letter is real, she said, still in her cat form. Isshin is alive, needs Kyukaku to read that. The twins freaked. Yes, yes, of course, Kagane Hiko said, bowing respectfully to the now honored guests. We apologize for earlier, Master Yoruichi. Sir, Ichigo, Shirogane Hiko said, trying to remember the earlier conversation between Hybrid and Quincy. Please, come this way, the yellow-dressed man said as he opened the door to the descending staircase. They reached the bottom where it looked like a more proper home with doors and hallways. Wait as I announce your. Just let them in, Kagane Hiko, a rough girl's voice yelled out, making the man stiffen. Why yes, Master Kyukaku, he cried, opening the door to reveal a large room filled with tatami mats, and a lone woman with bandages on her messy black hair, tattoo on her left arm while her right was absent, with a loose red robe showing off her ample cleavage. It's been a while, Yoruichi, she said with a tomboyish grin. Holy crap. Tatsuki yelled out in surprise. Her boobs are bigger than Oriheim's. Oriheim looked down, cupping her own boobs, and felt lacking in the breasts department for the first time in her life. Something Ichigo noticed. Don't worry, Oriheim, I don't love you for your boobs, he said, pulling her in for a hug. I love how you make me feel better just by being you, he said, making her smile with a happy blush. And you love me cause I'm a confident fireball that kicks ass, right? Tatsuki said, getting in close. Yes I do. Ichigo growled at her, capturing her lips quickly. Good answer. Quite the ladies' man, isn't he? Kyukaku asked her old friend as the cat walked to her. Yes, although he doesn't have as many girls as he should. Yoruichi lamented, being unable to tease him with her sexiness or embarrass him for being a playboy. So, you had a letter from my uncle? Kyukaku asked, getting Ichigo's attention again. Yeah, Ichigo said, freeing himself from his girlfriends to hand over Isshin's letter. Dad did say to give this to the head of the clan. Kyukaku actually looked shocked and read the letter before cracking up. So that's what the old goat was doing. She laughed before rising to her feet and wrapping her lone arm around Ichigo. Welcome to the family, cuz. Let's get you to the Serete. Invading Serete. The group marched down the lone bridge, the single connection to the only entrance to the ultimate prison cell for those on death row in Soul Society. In the lead was the captain of the 6th squad with his lieutenant. Behind them were the 4 Kaido Corps members leading Rukia by leads connected to their forked staves. There are no words among them, not until they reach the jutting white tower of the Repentance Cell. The transfer unit went into the meaning of the prison cell and its significance, maybe hoping to bring Rukia some peace. Captain Kuchiki, Lieutenant Aberai, thank you for the escort, said one of the cloth-covered spell users. We must be going now, they announced, Renji watching his old friend. She appeared to have given up, seems to not care whether or not her life ends. The more time she spent in those damned cells seemed to drain more and more life and joy from her. This was probably the nail in the coffin that would make her give up entirely. He couldn't allow that. He hurts that his friend was suffering. Lieutenant, they shouted as Renji stormed over to the prisoner until a calm hand steadied him. Leave him be, Byakuya said, keeping an eye on his subordinate and family. They were friends long ago. Let them speak one last time. Going to the repentance cell was a final death sentence. No one goes there to survive. Listen, Renji whispered upon reaching Rukia, that Kurosaki kid is in Soul Society. His words, sparking a reaction from Rukia for the first time in so long. He was willing to speak for your behalf, before Captain Ikamaru decided to make a game out of the situation. Rukia was feeling an odd mix of emotions. Hope, fear, worry, anger, all coursing through her soul. He's been confirmed alive but considered hostile. Orders are to capture, he said, pulling away from the girl and leaving the White Tower of Death. Why did you tell her that? The noble asked his second in command. That was close to overstepping the limit, Renji. Captain, Renji started before Byakuya cut him off again. You should have left it at he's alive. The captain admonished. When I give you orders, you are expected to follow them. He scolded as they walked away from the towering white cell. Tell her that Ichigo was alive. That was your task. The tattooed warrior was silent as he tried to think of how to phrase his next statement properly. She just seemed so dead, sir, he said finally. We used to be close during our days in the Rukan districts and the academy, he said, briefly flashing to the times they laughed together before statuses placed their damned barriers between them. I wanted to help, even if the repentance cell is the same as a death sentence. Byakuya stopped to face his subordinate. Telling her that he's alive would have done that. That's what I told you to do, Renji, not that they were here, he told the red-haired warrior. Just the knowledge that he was alive would put her at peace. But Rukia is so resigned to the idea of Soul Society's power that she would accept her death if it comes to that. As of yet, she is not to be executed, he said, turning to return to his office to finish out some business. What he said confused Renji and he was determined to find out more. But if she isn't to be executed, then why is she in the repentance cell? He asked, catching up to the noble. Byakuya sighed and gestured for Renji to get closer. Once his lieutenant bridged the gap, he began to speak. Or it's simply the matter of her giving her powers to a human, she would be sentenced to death. He explained in a whisper. As Ichigo said, he stole her power and was willing to speak on her behalf. Until we know more, Rukia's sentence is on hold. Renji breathed out a sigh of relief and resolved to find and capture Ichigo as per the order. But his captain wasn't done. This is highly classified, Renji, so you cannot speak of this to anyone. But something is wrong in Soul Society right now, he said, shocking Renji. Pushing for execution, more to kill Rukia than meting out justice it seems. And using the Saokyoku on an unseated Soul Reaper who was performing her duties in the best manner she could. This is all too excessive, and whatever is going on is linked to Kurosaki. The noble surmised as the two continued their walk in whispers. Then, my orders, sir, Renji hesitantly asked, the idea of a conspiracy worrying him. Do not speak of this with anyone but myself or the head captain, and capture Ichigo Kurosaki, he said before glaring at his second again. And don't get cocky this time. He's proven to be a powerful warrior with a focused mind. You're going to shoot us out of a cannon. Ichigo yelled in shock at the absurd plan that he was told of. That's the plan, he asked his newly found relatives as she stood proudly in front of the tower. I take it Isshin forgot to mention we're fireworks experts, Kyukaku asked with an amused smirk, watching the teens gawk at the family gun. He said explosives factored in. Just not how, Ichigo said, reconsidering asking for her help. Oh, don't be a baby, she said, tossing him a crystal ball with a red crane design. That Rise Yukaku will keep you safe when we blast you off, she said, walking down towards him. Just put your Ryatsu in and you'll create a shield that will be the cannonball. Ichigo did as instructed and was surrounded by a crystallized ball of spirit energy. Wow, he's got potential, Kyukaku remarked, surprised by the power her distant relative displayed. We made sure to train him well, Yoruichi stated, a deep sense of pride evident in her tone. That's impressive work, cousin, Ganju told Ichigo with a hint of respect. After being told of their relations, Ganju received a beating from his sister, even after he apologized to Ichigo and his friends. By the way, I'm all for insulting the Godai 13, but who are you going to rescue? he asked, only now hearing about the reason for invasion. Our friend, Orihime said, seeing no harm in telling their new allies. Rukia Kuchiki, a name that meant almost nothing to Ganju, but Kyukaku recognized it. Oh yeah, she said in casual recollection. She's the one that killed Big Bro, saying that made Ganju snap. You mean that bitch? He growled as Ichigo released the spirit core surrounding him. Nope, I want nothing to do with helping her. Count me out. I am not helping that. He ranted before the irate fireworks master bashed him in the face. Shut the hell up, Ganju. She had to kill Kayan. He got possessed by a hollow and would have killed more people as a monster, she told him, finally enlightening him to the truth. Her captain, Jushiro Yukitake, told me the whole story. That man does not lie. Ever. She then pulled him up by the collar of his shirt and started growling. And our dear uncle has asked us to help a new member of the clan. And that's what we're gonna do. Now suck it up and prepare to go with them. Got it. She glared at Ganju, making him nod mutely with bullets of sweat pouring down his face. Good. And Ichigo, she called to the hybrid who was discussing the validity of their plan with the Quincy. This might be our best bet since Serete is supposed to be in a spirit barrier, the archer said, which manages to allow air and water in. Ichigo finished. At least it should be fun. He noticed his distant relative calling to him. Yeah, 2 things. Bring Rukia here, we need to have a talk with her, and make sure you survive. She yelled with a grin. You lot owe me big for this and I expect you to pay for it. Ichigo rolled his eyes before agreeing. Good. Now for you lot to prepare for your trip. The lieutenant was on his way with some of his fellow colleagues, the memories of the conversation with his captain and the captain of Squad 5 replaying in his head. What are you saying, Captain Aizen? Isn't the execution on hold? Renji asked the learned man. This may just be a farce, Lieutenant Aberai. The captain replied. The greatest power in Serete is the Central 46, and those in power are rarely content with losing it. He gave the lieutenant his full and focused attention with Renji responding in kind. If I had to guess, this is more to show their power and authority, that no matters the circumstances, what they say is law. But the commander and other captains would never stand for that, Renji argued. In most circumstances, yes, but the head captain swore himself to uphold the law of Soul Society. Kurasaki's existence could be a show of defiance to the Central 46 and Rukia kept him hidden. They fear that these incidents might disrupt the balance of power in Serete and the commander's hands are tied unless he wants to break his vow to the law. All of the Godai 13 hunt Ichigo and his allies, while a questionable few might act on their own feelings. Aizen adjusted his glasses as he told Renji what was to come. Soul Society may face civil war, Lieutenant. The question is who's on what side. Should I tell him about the concerns Captain Kuchiki has? He wondered, entering the room of mostly assembled second-in-commands. No, I need to find Ichigo again. Aizen is probably already in on the possible conspiracy plot anyway. Renji, he heard the Squad 5 lieutenant ask him. She was a demure girl with black hair and a white bun, almost like a flower of gentle personality. You haven't seen Captain Aizen around, have you? She seemed almost worried, like a puppy that was just lost. No, can't say I have, he said, looking away from the small girl. He had special orders, and he didn't want to bother the poor girl too much. I'm worried, she said. He's been acting strange lately. When I asked him, he said nothing. I don't know what to do, she explained, on the verge of tears. Renji caved. No man is powerful enough to resist a crying girl in need of comfort. Look, it's probably nothing, he said, as helpful as he could. But Captain Aizen I know could resolve this invasion easily and peacefully, he said, having faith in the gentleman known as Sasuke Aizen. Ichigo wouldn't kill without reason, he said, unconsciously rubbing his side where Ichigo stabbed him. He's not that kind of man. And then we kill Aizen, Ichigo said as he and Yoruichi planned out an itinerary for Serete. Get in, find the head captain, rescue Rukia, and then kill Aizen. It seemed like a solid plan, but Jin's actions made it into a competition of sorts. They would try to do their things while the Soul Reapers tried to capture them. An afterlife game of cat and mouse. His friends were working on maintaining a spirit shield for when they head into Serete. Do not underestimate Aizen or overestimate yourself, Ichigo. Yoruichi lightly scolded her disciple. You are powerful but not the strongest you could be. We've had to be light enough with your training that Aizen wouldn't get too suspicious. She suspects that Aizen was already aware of Ichigo's current abilities, or at least was willing to learn and had ways of finding out. For now, wait and gather your strength. We have a battle on our hands, she said before they heard a thud and yelp. They looked over to see a crying Orihime holding her eye, behind a shaken Tatsuki, that was in front of an angry Kyukaku. You brat, she growled, making the younger girls shrink down in terror and Kyukaku's fiery aura flared brighter. Do you realize what you've done? How long do you think it took to get used to having one arm? She yelled out, revealing a fully formed right arm where it did not exist before, matching her left for every inch. Hey, she just wanted to see if it would work, Tatsuki defended, trying to put up a brave front before the angry noble. We thought you'd like to have your arm back. I am happy to have both arms, Kyukaku said, calming down considerably. It's just that I'm so used to not having both that it'll take a while to get used to. She brought up her right arm, flexing and rubbing it, ensuring that it was really there. This'll take a while to be comfortable with again. She mumbled. All right, you've mastered the rise Kyukaku, now rest up. You leave at dawn, Kyukaku announced before heading to get herself some dinner. And girls, doesn't change what I want, she said, making the two curse quietly and confusing the men. When morning came, they began their invasion of Serete. The game begins. The group of 7 flew through the empty sky in the sphere of spirit power, heading straight for the dome of Serete. They focused on their tasks, their upcoming battles, their goals. Oryu and Chad said they had something to do for Kisuk and Oriheim offered to go with them. Tatsuki said that there was someone that she wanted to meet for herself, and Ichigo had to find Yamamoto, and Ganju refused to abandon his new family member. They agreed to split up when they enter Serete, allowing the others to perform their tasks and create as much disruption as they could, turning unwanted attention on some to others. Yamamoto, Ichigo silently prayed. Please, listen to reason and what I have to say. They collided with the barrier, fighting against the spirit-dispelling force of the Sekisuke stone against the Ryukaku sphere. The two forces struggled until Ichigo stomped down on their shield and forced their way through. This unfortunately cracked the barrier and it dispelled the moment they got in the Serete. In a way, I should have seen this coming, Ichigo mumbled before a whirlwind of energy tried to throw them all over. Chad dove straight out, becoming engulfed in flames as he fell towards Serete with his mission in mind. Oryu and Oriheim held on long enough before falling out, Oryu controlling their descent with his Hienkyaku. Tatsuki jumped out with a smile on her face the second she saw her target, leaving Ichigo with his teacher and cousin before the blast separated Yoruichi from them as well. Chad looked toward the ground, fearlessly bracing himself as he brought out his arm. No longer decorated with white and magenta lines, but an intricate pattern on a black arm with a long protrusion at his shoulder. As he neared the ground, he cushioned the impact with a single rise he blast, slowing his descent and allowing him to roll onto the ground and diffuse the force of impact. Ichigo throws me harder than that, he thought to himself as he dusted himself off. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a case and GPS monitor which he turned on, finding himself standing on top of one of the locations on the screen. Oddly convenient, he thought as he knelt back down and opened the case, revealing stickers with a Kaido seal on them. He quickly attached one of the adhesive pictures to the ground his locator indicated, preparing to head for the next location. It's over here, he heard someone yell as he rose up, just in time for a small cell of 5 Shinigami to show up behind him. Freeze Ryoka, the apparent leader yelled out as Chad moved toward them. Stand down and come quietly. Don't make us get, his earlier confidence fading as he felt Chad's spirit pressure and stature. This might have been a mistake, he mumbled as Chad cracked his knuckles. Ichigo took some time to worry about his friends as they ended up flying in different directions. This was by unanimous choice, but he could still worry about them. The other few seconds were spent being annoyed as his Shiba cousin struggled to get in some position by pushing against Ichigo. Ganju, what are you doing? Ichigo asked over the rushing wind and fiery friction. Just give me a second, he responded before drawing a circle with an open palm. Turn to sand. Seppa, he yelled, sending the spell down and creating a pit of sand. I don't think so, Ichigo thought dryly before skating down normally on a flow of Rize, landing just fine while Ganju slammed into the sand and ended up buried. You know, I think that should have ended differently than it did, he snarked as Ganju tried to recover from the rough landing. Oh, shut up, he yelled, finally able to talk again. If you could land so easily, why didn't you help me? Because I doubt Kyukaku wants to hear that her brother needed his hand held all the time. Ichigo quickly countered. You're supposed to be a tough guy, now start acting like one, he said, feeling 2 strong soul reapers appear on the wall behind him. The sooner the better. He turned to face the newcomers. Woohoo, what luck. The bald one cheered as the 2 jumped down. With him was a more elegant-looking guy with what seemed to be eyelash extensions. Can you believe this? First we skip out on guard duty, and now the Ryoka we were expecting came right to us, he said before hopping around, singing about his luck. Now, let's have some fun. She ran through the walled pathways of the Serete, taking small breaks in available hiding places. She was excited. She knows the danger she's in being a trespasser in a military base, but she couldn't quell the burning excitement. Finally, a new opponent she could spar with and go all out against. Yoruichi only left it to a training level. Ichigo was someone she always spared with, and Orihime just started. Now she had a chance to fight someone for real and not some mindless beasts. Yoruichi spoke fondly of her quarry, making Tatsuki all the more determined to find the elusive bee. Just you wait, Soifon senpai, she thought, dashing through the streets. I can't wait to fight you. Challenging her fellow disciple of the Flash Goddess was on the forefront of her mind. But there was something else that made her want to find the captain of the 2nd Division. All the while, she was completely unaware that she was being watched. I recognize those movements, she thought, watching the fireball run. The duo landed safely on Orihime's shield, demonstrating how much control and will she gain to effectively use her powers in some kind of storage yard away from the others. Oryu handed Orihime a case containing the same kind of stickers while he fished for the locator he's supposed to have. Are you? Orihime asked, feeling concerned for their friends. Do you think they'll be alright? I think it'll take a lieutenant class, minimum, to take one of us in, he said, finally finding the device. However, we should try to avoid getting noticed. No telling if what that captain from earlier said is true. Maybe we can ask politely, Orihime asked. Oryu could only look at the ditzy girl with a dry expression. If you want, he said, relenting to the girl's puppy eyes. Try to do so before we knock them out, he said before getting a set of coordinates. Let's go, he said as they charged towards their destination, unaware of the Soul Reaper that was spying on them. So, can you handle yourself in a fight? Ichigo asked his Shiba cousin, purposefully ignoring the bald man's dance and song about his luck. Of course I can, Ganju defended. I'm the toughest in all of West Rukin. Good, Ichigo said, ignoring the fact that Kyukaku was the real toughest. Then you can run along while I take care of this. Ganju was in a mix of shock and insult. Are you telling me to run? That I'm weak? He growled, mostly angry and hurt a little. If you can handle yourself, then you can go on ahead, the hybrid said, Flash stepping in front of the dancer as he finished and delivered a strong elbow strike to the man's chest and sending him flying into a wall. Walls of iron sand, a priestly pagoda, glowing ironclad fireflies. Standing upright, silent to the end, he chanted, keeping his hands clasped as 5 glowing orbs rose from his hands. Bakudo, number 75. Dashuteken, he called out, raising his hands above his head and down on the other Shinigami. What beautiful execution, he thought before being knocked down by Ichigo bringing his fists down on his head followed by 5 large pillars pinning him in place. Ganju was amazed by Ichigo's power and ability. Rather than complain about having to leave, he decided to put faith in his cousin. He turned and ran off to the repentance cell, off to confront Rukia. Sorry about your friend, but I'd rather he not be followed, Ichigo said, turning to face the other Shinigami who finally came back. Think he'll be alright. TCH, Yumachika will be fine, he said, having confidence in his longtime comrade. That was a little rude of you, interrupting my pre-fight dance like that. Blame my teachers, Ichigo retorted, stretching his arms out. And that Jin Ikamaru guy. I just wanted to have a friendly little chat with the head captain. Then he comes and tries to kill me. He slowly shifted into a position more suited for fast reactions. Oh yeah, he said, remembering what happened yesterday. He was out of line. You were meant to be escorted directly to the commander, Ichigo Kurosaki. He regained his battle-hungry smirk as he continued to inform the hybrid of the events on the side of Serete. However, Captain Ikamaru saw it as an opportunity to test the efficiency of the 13 court guard squads. So now we have to capture you and bring you in. The name's Ikaku Madaram, 3rd seat of Squad 11, he said, unsheathing his Zanpakuto. Pleased to meet you, Ichigo. Likewise, Ichigo said, taking out his own blade and settling into his relaxed stance. He never did take any single style, just acted on instinct, fluid, flexible, and most importantly, unpredictable. You sure are a dangerous one, Ikaku remarked. Having years of experience told him that while Ichigo seemed like he had no defense, he was very much ready. You're just waiting for me to drop my Ichigo flashed in front of Ikaku and swung his blade, with his opponent just barely having time to block. The force of the blow sent the bald fighter flying back while trying to relieve the shocks in his arms. When he landed, he was faced with another onslaught of attacks from the hybrid. This feeling, he thought, trying to defend against the ferocity he was met with. He's holding it back, but I know this feeling. The two finally separated as Ikaku needed to catch his breath. Ichigo wasn't even winded. The sense of a monster, a beast far more terrifying than me. Through Ichigo's calm and stoic facade, Ikaku saw a version that was grinning savagely at the prospect of a challenge. He's like Captain Zaraki. Ikaku took his chance to go on the offensive, swinging his blade for Ichigo's head. As predicted, Ichigo blocked the sword while almost unaware of Ikaku's sheath coming for his side. Ichigo grunted from the impact before slamming his head against Ikaku's and forcing distance between them again. "Nice one," Ichigo said, rubbing his ribs as the pain alleviated. "But you won't get another hit like that." He created another blade to companion the one he already had and settled into his own dual-wielding stance. "What the?" the third seed asked in surprise. "How did you do that?" "Captain-level technique," the hybrid explained. Captains are required to control the form of their Zanpakutos, otherwise they'd be swinging towers. "I just took it a step further. To quote Captain Ishin, when it comes to Soul Reapers, bitch I edit the wiki," he said, getting ready to charge. "What the hell's a wiki?" Ikaku roared as they clashed again, sparks flying from their blades with every strike. Ichigo was on the defense as he slowly got used to Ikaku's seemingly unpredictable style. "It's a website with information on a given subject," Ichigo responded as they slashed and parried each other before separating. "Find me in the living world when this is all over, I'll show ya," Ichigo said, slightly winded while Ikaku was breathing heavier. "Looks like the rumors were true," he said, giggling like a madman. "You did fight Captain Ikamaru, you did injure him, and you definitely are a force to be reckoned with." He straightened himself up. "I don't see myself winning this, but that doesn't mean I'm going to quit." He connected his blade and sheath on opposite ends and called out his Zanpakuto. "Extend, Hazukimaru." The sword and sheath was engulfed in glowing light as it turned into a spear with a red tassel. "Let's cut loose," he charged, trying to catch Ichigo off guard. The hybrid just managed to dodge and ward off the onslaught of stabs, slashes, and swings. Finally, he came down with a strong, heavy swing that made Ichigo use both hands to block, never knowing of the hidden danger in the attack. "Split," Ikaku yelled, separating the three-part pole that was Hazukimaru. Ichigo barely escaped, having a diagonal cut through his face as the price for his folly. "I'm sorry, I'm supposed to capture you alive, but fighting you excites me so much it's hard to hold back," he said, standing a few feet from Ichigo as he wiped the blood away from his face. "No worries, I understand," the hybrid said, already healing from the cut. "I just have to keep up." His swords transformed into the large kyber form he obtained as a first release. "But I've had enough of this," he said, unleashing more of his Ryatsu. "I've got places to be." Ikaku started to tremble, whether from primal fear or battle-hungry excitement. He wasn't sure. "Well, Ikaku, what now?" "You're amazing," Ikaku managed to say. "What even are you?" he questioned as he charged, blade in one hand while spinning the opposite end. For a split second he saw Ichigo grunt in annoyed disappointment before he was slashed across his chest, his staff broken in half, as Ichigo then grabbed onto his face and slammed him into the ground. The warrior tried to move before Ichigo stomped down on his gaping cut. "Looks like I wasn't the only one holding back," Ichigo said, applying more pressure on Ikaku. "You knew about altering the size of the Zanpakuto, and you're a much more skilled fighter than you let on," he said while Ikaku groaned in pain, still pinned by Ichigo's strength. "You should have been giving me so much more trouble than what you did." The hybrid removed his foot and hauled the third seat to eye level. "Why did you hold back?" "You knew?" he asked surprised, with his strength slowing draining more and more. "How? The people that trained me are still way stronger than I am," Ichigo explained before punching him in the face. "I know when others hold back." Another blow to Ikaku. "So, why hold back?" he asked before cutting Ikaku, all in places that looked like he fought. "Was it because you thought I was weak?" "Hardly," Ikaku managed to cough out. "I'm just content where I am, serving under my captain," he explained as Ichigo let him go and stumble against a wall. "He's the first man that ever really beat me and set me on my path." He dropped to the ground, looking up at Ichigo and seeing a silhouette of his battle-scarred captain next to him. "You remind me of him. If you're the strongest of your group, then he'll be looking for you, Ichigo." "Sounds like fun," the young Shinigami said as he reverted and sheathed his blade. "Tell him to meet me near the 1st Division barracks." He was about to walk off before realizing he had no idea where those barracks were. "Which would be?" Ikaku chuckled at the short-mindedness from someone that almost read him like a book. "Off that way," he said, pointing off into the distance with his sword and took out his blood-clotting ointment. "Great, I'll head there after I find my idiot cousin," Ichigo said before pausing in front of Ikaku one last time. "Never hold back again. Aim for victory. Say you lose when you die," he told the Soul Reaper before running off to find Ganju. Ikaku again noted the similarities Ichigo had to his captain. "He should be a good challenge for you, Captain," he muttered before the last of his strength left, holding out long enough to patch up his bleeding wounds. "Maybe I should fight more seriously," he muttered before the darkness overcame him. The duo hid away on the roof of a random building, staying out of the sight of the large man with ragged clothes marked by the kanji for 11. man being a generous term as he would probably fit the description of a beast much better. The main things out of place on him were the bells in his hair and the small girl on his shoulders. Looks like Baldy's sleeping, the pink-haired adolescent said, oddly cheerful despite her company. He must have lost two. To take out both Ikaku and Yumichika is impressive, the man said in a deep rough tone. But that fast is all the more exciting. He developed a snarling grin, growing more and more excited for the fight against the elusive Ichigo. And he left a landmark to go to, he said, pointing to the 5 chain pillars, standing tall in the relative distance. Let's go, Kenny. The girl cheered as the duo charged for their target. Once they were out of sight, the humans rose from their hiding spot. Sounds like they're headed for Ichigo, Orihime said, worry for her lover coming through her voice. Seems like it, Aryu agreed. Though, this might be for the better. He caught Orihime looking at him in confusion. Ichigo has never really fought before, he tried to explain. He's only ever had controlled sparring matches or was vastly superior to his opponent. He never had anyone to really push him to that kind of limit. There's something underneath that control, just waiting to come out. Are you saying that Ichigo is actually a very violent person? She asked, feeling a little scared. No, Aryu said, looking off to where his cousin went. He's a fighter, one that's burning to test and push himself. Aryu cursed that they needed to hold back, even now when they should be pushing themselves. But, according to his father, the Vandenreich watches from the shadows. He wasn't sure what that meant beyond be careful, so for now, he'll focus on their mission. Where's the next spot, Orihime? He asked, turning to his companion. That way, Orihime said, looking at the device and pointing to the right, unaware of the Soul Reaper trying to strike at her. Completely on instinct, Orihime caught the giant man's wrist, slammed her elbow into his stomach, throwing him over her shoulder, stomping on his face while locking his arm in a ready position to dislocate his shoulder, all in the span of a second. Ops, sorry, she said sheepishly before kicking him unconscious. I tend to react without knowing now. I think I should worry for Ichigo about her instead. Or you thought before they left. Confrontations. The black-haired feline made her way from rooftop to rooftop, keeping a watchful eye and sense on her young charges. Ichigo swiftly dealt with 2 seated officers of the 11th, filling the exiled noble with a sense of pride at his skill. Sato caused an explosive ruckus before practically disappearing from the eyes of the Shinigami. Orihime made her laugh at her sudden reactions to the attempted sneak attack that left her opponent an unconscious heap. Tatsuki seemed a little overconfident with her desire to meet her Littleby, but if she beats the crap out of that Amida guy that was the current lieutenant, she should get a meeting with Soy Fawn. Ganjo was attracting attention like fat and weak buffalo to a pride of hungry lions, seeing as how he was being chased by almost half of Squad 11. I understand your enthusiasm, little fireball, Yoruichi thought to herself as she continued to watch them. But you don't become a Black Ops head by being careless. She then saw Ichigo catch up to Ganjo, and promptly crush the nameless Soul Reapers in a second. I just hope Kyukaku won't be too harsh on that idiot. Ichigo is setting a rather high bar. She sweat dropped. It was then she noticed something interesting. Mayuri Kuretsuchi and Kenpachi Zaraki were both heading toward the same place. Now what are you two doing? She questioned before following them. Ganjo, Ichigo started, feeling a slight headache, looking down on his cousin from the pile of Shinigami he sat on. I left you alone for maybe 5 minutes. What the hell happened? He roared, gesturing to the group that was previously chasing the Shiba man, all of whom were beaten and unconscious. Well, Ganju scratched the back of his head nervously. I was running, but these guys just showed up out of. Why the hell were you just running around? Don't you even know what stealth means? As the two Shibas argued over logical sense and manliness, they were unaware of the small, weak-looking combat medic that accidentally stumbled upon their location. Until said Shinigami tripped and screamed. This caught their attention as they went over to the poor kid. What a pathetic-looking Soul Reaper, Ganju said, looking down on the guy with his chin-length brunette hair, small frame, and a medical bag on his body. Almost makes you feel sorry, Ichigo remarked before helping the guy up. Hey, what's your name? Oh, Hanataro Yamada, he said, unused to such kindness from strangers. I'm a member of Squad 4. He then screamed at the realization that he was in front of enemies, and one of them fought a captain on even ground. He was about to turn and run before Ichigo grabbed him by the shoulder. You mind giving us directions to where Ruki is being held? Ichigo asked the trembling medic in his kind older brother tone, which immediately helped Hanataro calm down enough to make rational decisions again. Sure, aren't you Ichigo Kurosaki? Ichigo nodded in response, getting Hanataro to brighten up. Rukia told me so much about you. Come on, I'll show you the way. He cheered out, running off knowing that the two could catch up to him. He was always assigned janitorial duties by other Soul Reapers, but he never minded it. During the 2 weeks of Rukia's detainment in the Squad 6's barracks, he met the petite beauty and talked with her. She told him about the man known as Ichigo, and he developed an idolized image of him as a hero and hopefully as a friend. He was eager to make a good first impression by helping him out. The cousins shrugged at each other, having no other leads but to follow. Ichigo decided to keep with them until someone else showed up that could escort the two. They seemed less than capable of their own protection. Yoruichi watched, finding amusement in Kuretsuchi's anger at the silent third seat of the 11th squad. She understood now why Urahara teased him as much as he did. It was hilarious. You expect me to believe that even though you fought him, you have absolutely nothing important to tell me. The psychotic clown growled, feeling his intelligence insulted that he would believe such a lie, or his ego for being denied anything useful on a possible research specimen. Nothing to tell you, Ikaku simply said. I know not his end goals or anything about him or his allies. He defeated me with superior speed, strength, and skill. Nothing you'd understand. Insolent little, Kuretsuchi growled, raising his hand to punish Ikaku for his insults. Yoruichi nearly jumped in, until the mad scientist's wrist was caught in the crushing grip of Zaraki. I don't believe you're entitled to punish members of other squads, Mayuri. He calmly threatened, making the Squad 12 captain reevaluate his options. Fine, he conceded, pulling his hand free from the berserker. You finish his interrogation. I have other matters to attend to. With the psycho out of the room, Yoruichi relaxed and continued her observations. So you managed to fight Ichigo and you end up beaten and bloodied, Zaraki stated before adopting an excited smirk. Is he strong? Very, Ikaku responded. He almost reminded me of when we first met, Captain. When I warned him about you, he merely said to meet him at the 1st Division barracks. He keeps it down, but he craves a challenge all the same. He turned to the scarred man. I don't know if you can beat him. Fine with me, Zaraki said, keeping that bloodlust and thrill. It's been too long since my blood boiled like this. He turned and left his third in command to his recovery. His pink-haired lieutenant soon joined him. So we're to now, Kenny? Yakairu asked, feeling the scarred man's excitement affecting her as well. Are we going to find Ichigo? Ichigo will come to us, he said, already running to Squad 1's barracks. And then I have a grand fight, he yelled before laughing manically. Renji and most of his fellow lieutenants listened as the latest report was delivered. Almost all of Squad 11 was out of commission, with several other seated officers being taken out with relative ease. Looks like there's actually some validity to Captain Ikamaru's actions, thought Renji. This is embarrassing for the Godai 13. Just how much stronger are you, Ichigo? Continued sightings of one of the Ryoka heading for the 2nd Division barracks. The man delivering the report announced, HMMPH, they think they can challenge me. A large, balding, heavy-set man with a purple collar snorted. How embarrassing for me, the great Merchio Amida. He boasted unashamedly, causing everyone else to groan. What? Finishing out the report, sightings of Ichigo confirms that he's making his way to the Repentance Cell, with one other and Squad 4 member, Hanataro Yamada, acting as their guide. Best case scenario, he continued with his report while Renji had heard what he wanted and made his way to intercept Ichigo. They followed Hanataro through the sewer system that led to the closest they could get to the Repentance Cell. Ichigo looked up to the enormous white tower, the prison holding his friend, and the execution she would go to if he couldn't stop this conspiracy plot. He then felt the familiar presence from earlier that month, one of the men that took Rukia away. It's been a while, Renji Aberai, Ichigo said, casually, unconcerned with the lieutenant who was walking towards him and his group. Yes, it has, Ichigo Kurosaki, the tattooed man said, following his captain's advice of not underestimating the Ryoka this time. Now let me tell you now, this won't end like last time, he growled, glaring at the man that humiliated him. A look Ichigo returned. Yeah, it won't, he agreed before walking off toward where Ikaku said that the 1st Division was located. Escort Ganju to Rukia, let him have his talk with her and he'll turn himself in. I have a meeting with the head captain and I'm late enough as it is. Hanataro and Ganju could only look on in surprise. A lieutenant-class Soul Reaper, and Ichigo was acting as if he was no threat. Renji's own surprise quickly shifted to more anger. Are you running away? He yelled at the hybrid. Do you think I'm weaker than you? Let me tell you now, Ichigo, captains and lieutenants. Captains and lieutenants are required to have their Ryatsu limited when they go to the world of the living, Ichigo stated at the same time, silencing Renji again. In Soul Society, that restriction doesn't exist and they are 5 times stronger than otherwise. I know, Renji. He turned to look Renji dead in the eyes. But I'm not going to bother fighting someone with such a weak resolve. He prepared to continue on his way. Don't you dare. Renji began before a beam of pale light shot just an inch from his neck. Renji stood in shock, feeling his skin burn and blister from the heat of a nameless Byakurai that demonstrated a clear message. I've gotten much stronger, and I'm resolved in my actions. A point made with the amount of destruction that single beam caused. I could feel the conflict in your soul from the day we met, Ichigo told him, lowering his smoking hand. You never wanted to do anything to harm Rukia. I don't know your past together, but until you end that conflict you will never be able to beat me, he said, before continuing on his way. Renji dropped to his knees, beaten yet again, and treated like a pathetic rookie for the first time in a while. He was deaf and blind to the world, unaware of Hanataro applying first aid to his burns, as Ichigo's words echoed into his memories of the past 2 weeks. He realized he wanted to help Rukia, believing that beating Ichigo could influence that in any way. He wanted to defeat his captain, the man that took her away and made them drift apart. But most of all, he wanted to redeem himself for being a terrible friend. He did nothing to stop them from losing their connection, didn't even object in the slightest to her arrest, and blamed someone else when he was mad with himself. He made his plans and did as Ichigo told him, finding a place to rest for the remainder of the night before meeting with Rukia. Ichigo, he yelled, before the hybrid disappeared from sight. Please, save Rukia. Ichigo said nothing before vanishing in a burst of speed. Finally, the martial artist thought to herself, reaching the headquarters of the second squad of the Shinigami. Now Yoruichi always described her as petite with black hair, and since she's the current captain, she should be wearing a Haori with a 2 on it. Or maybe I can force her out of hiding by beating the crap out of the idiots that have been following me, she yelled out, and letting the ninjas of the Onmitsukido, the covert police of Soul Society, know she knew they were following her. Little by little, they began to reveal themselves, with Merchio standing tall and proud. You must be incredibly foolish to come here alone, little girl, Amida yelled out. He remembered the report from earlier. Wartime measures were being taken. The forces of the Serete could no longer allow these human brats to keep showing them up. He had to prove the effectiveness of his squad and make his captain proud. I, Lieutenant Merchio Amida, will show you your, he tried to say before Tatsuki slammed her knee into his face, resulting in a loud crunch that came from a broken nose. She then kicked him in the stomach, using that momentum to flip over him and threw him into the hard tile stones of the roof of the building they were on. She then locked his arms in place and swiftly dislocated them, finishing with a swift punch to his temple and knocking him out. Time, she yelled out to no one in particular. 2.5 seconds, someone muttered out, surprised by the ferocity and efficiency she displayed. Damn, too slow, Tatsuki cursed. But whatever, you lot think this'll piss off your captain enough to come out? She asked, standing on top of the unconscious heap that was a lieutenant. If anything, you did me a favor. She turned and came face to face with the petite black-haired captain of Squad 2. And Soifan, captain of Squad 2, surrender peacefully, Ryoka, she commanded in a no-nonsense way. Tatsuki met that with a determined grin. Oh, I know who you are already, Tatsuki said, jumping off of the oaf. Name's Tatsuki Arasawa, and I'm here for one thing. She immediately bowed before the captain while clasping her hands. Please spar with me. For the first time in a long while, Soifan was caught off guard and stared at the human in shock. Huh? She so eloquently asked, trying to make some sense of the situation before her. Out of all the Ryoka, only 2 are permitted to fight captains. Tatsuki explained. I'm not one of them, but I really want to fight you. It's been forever since I had a chance to really test my skills. If you let me spar with you, I'll surrender immediately after. Soifan racked her brain, trying to figure this out. She's used to surprise attacks at night. Poisons in her food and drinks, all-out ambushes, everything except for a sincere, upfront, sparring match request from an enemy. This was a new one for her. Well, who? She said, some logical part of her mind still trying to catch up. You did assault and embarrass my lieutenant in front of the entire squad. Oh please, that guy is seriously your lieutenant. Tatsuki chuckled, getting up out of her bow. That bloated, flashy idiot is the honest-to-God lieutenant of the 2nd Division. Did he buy his way up the ladder? Because no one's standards are that low. As much as I'd like to agree with you, he actually did earn his station. Now it was Tatsuki's turn to be completely shocked. Yeah, his method is to act like a boastful, egotistical idiot that only got his position through money to drop his opponent's guard. There was a pause between the 2 martial artists. Soifan's expression went back to normal while Tatsuki was still bug-eyed. It is a legitimate strategy, but not one I approve of. It gets really annoying. I'm sorry, Captain. Amida managed to groan out, having finally come to. Shut up, idiot. Only to be silenced again by the girls kicking him like a soccer ball shot out of a cannon. They shared a glance before giggling. I like you, Arisawa, Soifan told her. You've earned that sparring match, she said before dropping to the ground and removing her haori, revealing her sleeveless and backless uniform. But when I've had enough, I will end it, she said with a smirk. Fine with me, Tatsuki called out with a grin, dropping down to join her. I'll even tell you a secret I bet you're dying to know. He made his way towards the old man, risking a slight headache with a single Pesquisa pulse to get a general direction and location. He found his target and charged toward who he expected was Yamamoto with determination, refusing any more detours, settling for only necessary delays instead. He expected Zaraki to be waiting for him, which could help his discussion with the commander to go much smoother if he was in no real condition to fight. That was the current plan anyway. Go to the 1st Division barracks, fight Zaraki, talk to Yamamoto, and expose Aizen somehow. It was supposed to be simple, but there was always a chance for a plan to hit a roadblock. He felt that roadblock and knew that this couldn't be avoided, so he dropped down and came face to face with his opponent. Hello Ichigo Kurosaki, said the man. I'm the captain of Squad 5, Sasuke Aizen, framed crescent moon. The sky in the realm of Passed on Souls was on fire with the light of the setting sun. The two martial artists stood a few feet apart from the other, waiting for the start of the fight. A brave soul among the patrol corps volunteered to referee the battle between the Hornet and Fireball. Rules stood as when one of them admits defeat, or was rendered incapable of fighting. No blades, no Kaido, just martial arts. The women just kept their confident smirks as they wait, though Soifan remained calm and focused while Tatsuki could barely contain her excitement. Off to the side, with the rest of the Onmitsukido, the appointed official raised his arm. Begin, he yelled, bringing his arm down swiftly. The two charged at each other, Tatsuki throwing the first punch which Soifan caught and deflected it. Managing to use that shift and balance, Tatsuki continued a furious assault of punches and kicks to her senior disciple of the Flash Goddess. Soifan kept her focus and seemingly danced around every attack, dodging or deflecting every blow with relative ease. Once she had a clear opening, she struck, slamming her palms against Tatsuki's midsection and sent her back several feet. First blood, she quipped, Tatsuki already steadying herself. Ready for more. I'd be disappointed if you gave up now. She just disappeared in a burst of shunpo and slammed her foot into Soifan with similar results. Don't worry, I can take a hit, she returned as Soifan uncrossed her arms from blocking the near sudden attack. Keep this up and I'll make you my new lieutenant. The captain returned, pleased with the promise her challenger displayed. They again charged at each other and became locked in another exchange of blows, each one as unrelenting as the last to display their skills in bare-handed combat. It went on like that until the petite captain caught Tatsuki's wrist and twisted around to put her in an arm lock, pinning her right arm helplessly against her back. Not to seem rude, Tatsuki groaned out in pain. But I'd rather not go against my boyfriend and join the enemy. We're still on opposing sides, remember. Maybe so, but it's only a matter of time till you're all captured, she said, putting more pressure on Tatsuki's arm and forcing the girl to her knees. You said it yourself, only two of you are supposed to be strong enough to fight captains. Tatsuki regained her smirk as she felt her hand press against the small captain's stomach. Yeah, but that doesn't mean I'm a slouch either. Doesn't that burn by the way? She asked, igniting her Raizei in her fist and summoning her fire. Soifan jumped back in surprise and released Tatsuki, who kicked her legs out from under her and tried to slam her burning fist into the Onmitsukido commander's stomach. She was met only with stone as Soifan escaped at the last second. We agreed on no Kaido, Soifan growled, analyzing the mysterious ability her opponent displayed as her other fist ignited. But that's not Kaido, is it? The two returned to their stances in preparation of the next assault. You're so much better than me, Tatsuki defended, not the least bit bothered by her flames. I needed an ace up my sleeve. She charged at the Hornet, the fires in her hands roaring as they flew through the air to find their target with every strike. So much heat in such a small flame, Soifan thought as she dodged through the assault. The new ability Tatsuki displayed increased the effective range of her attacks, leaving small burns and singes on her as she tried to adapt to the sudden change. Does she actually know? No, it's not the same. A good imitation though. Definitely need her in my squad. After she managed to recognize the pattern in Tatsuki's movements, she made her move, once again deflecting Tatsuki's punch and exposing her side. Predictable, Soifan smirked, readying a disabling strike. She was unaware of Tatsuki's smirk as she turned on her own and got Soifan with a spinning hook kick, with a little extra spice to it. My fists aren't the only ones that burn, she explained as Soifan slid to a halt on the ground, grasping her shoulder as the remnants of the spirit fire continued to burn her. She stood up as Tatsuki ignited her feet as well. That's my point, Captain, she said before charging again, putting Soifon on the defensive as she had to dodge the fiery strikes. Her shoulders still burned from the earlier attack and it put her on guard. For as much danger she was in and the duty she had to uphold, she found herself enjoying the match. It's not often that she gets a challenge that actually tests her in such a manner. She disappeared in a burst of speed to gain some distance and rethink a strategy. Skilled martial artist, interesting ability, maybe some more work on her shunpo. Soifon evaluated Tatsuki in her head. Amida, say hello to your replacement. She finished before Tatsuki spotted her on a spire and threw a punch. Meteor strike, Tatsuki yelled, shooting off a fireball at her opponent. Soifon barely managed to dodge the explosion when the ball connected to the building. Tatsuki winced from the accidental damage she caused. Sorry, still working on that. She apologized. Just something we'll have to work on when you join the stealth force, Soifon said, disapproving of the flashiness of the move. Should be easy to fix. Understood. Thanks, senpai. Tatsuki let out carelessly, making Soifon stiffen. What did you call me? She said, shaken. She knew that Tatsuki didn't attend the academy, and her movements were so familiar. Now she understood why. I said senpai. Tatsuki realized her mistake. Right, Sensei said you'd still be mad that she didn't even see it coming. Barely felt it until she saw Soifon in front of her with her fist buried in her gut, right on the solar plexus. Tatsuki coughed out in pain as she was tripped and both her arms nearly torn out of their sockets and Soifon dislocated them. The moment she landed face first, Soifon pinned her there with a near-death grip on her neck. I'm done with this spar, Arisawa, the captain said coldly as her squad members came over to retrieve the defeated Ryoka. It was a good match, so I'll give you some advice. Leave her, she doesn't care about her students, she said bitterly, never forgiving the woman she once looked up to. She heard Tatsuki gasp out with some laughter. I'll keep that in mind, she groaned out, ignoring the pain in her chest. By the way, still wanna hear that secret? She called out to the back facing her. It has to do with why she left you. And the captain of Squad 5, Sasuke Aizen, the man across the hybrid said. He spoke gently, mockingly as he was sure Ichigo knew who he was and his intentions. The hybrid said nothing as the two stood across from one another. If you would be so kind. He unsheathed his blade as Ichigo instantly appeared before him and swung his blade. He effortlessly blocked the attack as a shockwave created a gust of wind. To let me finish. And you called Renji rude. The difference is that Byakuya was actually interested in what I had to say, Ichigo said, charging his energy for a familiar ability. There is nothing you have to say that I care about. Getsuga Tenshu, he roared, hitting Aizen point blank with a black and blue wave of energy. The blast left a giant gash in the ground and reduced several buildings to rubble. Ichigo scanned the cloud of dust for his opponent. I know what you're after and you won't stop me from reaching Yamamoto. Do you mean to tell him about my goals with the Hagioku? Aizen said from behind Ichigo as 6 beams of light impaled him. Do you really think he'll believe the words of a Ryoka or the student of exiles over a captain that served loyally for a century? He asked before blocking another strike as the trapped Ichigo disappeared. Actually, I was going to tell him about an actual threat, not some arrogant child attempting to play God. Aizen glared at the hybrid in front of him. Did I actually strike a nerve on the great Aizen? Ichigo asked before Aizen got behind him and left a deep gash in his back. I thought you wanted to get to Yamamoto as soon as possible, he said to the boy as he staggered in pain. How do you expect to get to him if you spend all your time talking to me? Guess you're right, Ichigo said as he straightened up, already healed from the deep cut in his back. If we're going to keep exchanging banter till one of us dies, we'll be here till morning. Ichigo rolled and stretched his limbs in preparation. So I'm not going to bother being subtle with this. Neither of us are going to go all out and I doubt you'll benefit in killing me now. He faced his opponent and settled into his stance. Is this just to get an idea of my current power, or are you staging a show? Could be both, could be neither. Aizen returned, readying himself. You will never succeed, Kurosaki. Shatter, Kyoka. He never finished his release phrase before Ichigo attacked him furiously, forcing the captain on the defensive. The training from Urahara and Yoruichi showed as every blow was filled with an intent to kill, so subtle that the only way to confirm the intentions of every strike was that each one was aimed for a vital area. Aizen easily met every strike, the danger actually making him focus on defense. Could he? No, that's impossible. No one knows, Aizen thought to himself as Ichigo continued his assault. Cannot let him use his illusion ability. Absolutely can't, Ichigo told himself, knowing that anything less than lethal intent would do little to give the man pause. Ichigo was caught off guard as Aizen managed to disarm Ichigo of his blade as he twisted it out of his hands. Left with his bare fists, Ichigo increased his speed suddenly and struck Aizen in the chest with a palm attack. Aizen attempted to get some distance, but Ichigo stayed inside his guard, doing his best to disable or at least crush his throat. Just as Ichigo seemed to get the upper hand, Aizen made another deep slash through Ichigo's throat. Bakudo number 61, Rikijikoro, Aizen recited, trapping the boy with the rods of light again. Foolish boy, all those years of preparation, all that training, all of it amounting to nothing. Even with me holding back, what a disappointment you turned out to be. He closed his eyes in shame at the display of Ichigo's abilities, secretly hoping for him to prove him wrong. He opened his eyes to see Ichigo in front of him with his arm glowing in concentrated Raizhi. Getsuga, Ichigo yelled, striking Aizen in the chest with a fist and blast of Raizhi, sending him back several feet. Not lightening up, he aimed his palm at the man again with a ball of crackling energy ready. Hado number 63, Reikoho. He fired the blast of energy at the man as he ended up buried in rubble. Like I said, Ichigo growled as he summoned his sword back to him. You will not stop me, Aizen. He released the first form of his blade and raised it up for next attack. Getsuga Tensho. He roared, sending a wave of his destructive power at the man, destroying everything in its path. He grunted, feeling himself losing to his bloodlust. No, gotta stay focused. Can't reveal any more Hollow or Quincy abilities. He yelled to himself, trying to suppress his inner beast. Not bad, he heard from behind as Aizen sunk his blade into his body, but you are still too weak. Hado number 11, Tsuzuri Raiden. He said, sending millions of volts of spirit electricity through Ichigo's body. The hybrid could only drop to his knees helplessly as his muscles clenched and his fries from the inside. I was hoping that you would be an ultimate being, capable of standing at my side in the end. But you have proven weak, feeble. Maybe, next time I try, I will use one of your sisters to birth my creation. Aizen mused, purposefully goading the hybrid. The worst part was that Ichigo knew that was his goal, but he didn't care. Don't you dare, Ichigo roared, forcing himself up and uppercutting Aizen with all his strength. Ichigo's veins were glowing and bulging out with his eyes shifting colors and his Ryatsu flaring about his body. He rocketed toward Aizen, creating 3 separate speed clones that each attacked the captain. The man flew higher until he felt a bind around his body. He found a rope of light binding him as Ichigo ripped him toward the ground. As they neared, Ichigo grabbed hold of him and used the momentum to spin them around and threw the manipulator into the ground at a greater velocity. As soon as Aizen collided with the ground, Ichigo aimed his palms again for another Kaido spell. Ye Lord, mask of blood and flesh, all creation, flutter of wings, ye who bears the name of man. Inferno and pandemonium. The sea barrier surges, march on to the south. Hado number 31, Shikaho. Ichigo chanted, creating a massive fireball. A fine display of power, but not enough, Aizen thought before shielding himself with a danku, holding off the majority of Ichigo's fireball. After the blast ended, he saw over 100 more appearing everywhere above him and shooting down like rain. That's a new one, Aizen idly thought before the punishing bombardment slammed into his barrier, eventually breaking it. Ichigo landed on the ground, almost 100 feet away. Shatter Kyoka Suigetsu he attempted before feeling himself get impaled and shot back into another building, this one collapsing on top of him. Ichigo's blade retracting to a normal length. In retrospect, Ichigo panted as he finally calmed down. This was a really bad idea. He looked down at his bloodied sword, now returned to its sealed state for that final attack. Every bit as difficult as he thought it would be, but he felt something was off about this. Captain Aizen. He heard a woman scream. He turned and saw a petite distraught girl, looking at where Aizen last was before turning to glare at the hybrid. You murderer. Oh crap, he whispered as he saw more lieutenants reveal themselves in the pale moonlight, all looking at him in shock. He tried to figure a way out while ignoring a sudden itch in his body. That boy is definitely something, he said, focusing his Kaido into healing the wound in his side. He's able to mix and blend his abilities to frightening extents, generating Raizhi platforms as a focus for Kaido, mixing Sunido and Shunpo, concentrating his Raizhi through his own body. Ichigo, you will be a fascinating being. He ceased his spell as he finally healed from his stab wound. Didn't expect him to mimic Jin's Shikai like that. Maybe I should have gotten to you first. No matter. He rose up and returned to the building of the Central 46. With this, you will be the most wanted man in Soul Society and your friends will be executed, he said, looking down at his Zanpakuto, an elegant blade, despite missing 2 inches of the tip. That part of the blade was still embedded inside Ichigo, breaking off when he turned to attack him in that final assault. This will not protect you, Ichigo. The other captains will kill you for me. Wow, Kenny, Ikai must be really strong, Yakiru exclaimed from her captain's shoulder. The scarred man could only grin in anticipation. Yeah, that definitely looks like a worthwhile fight, the Kenpachi said in his ever-gravely voice. Do you not care that he killed Captain Aizen? The old commander by his side asked. When Zaraki heard of where he could expect to meet his chosen opponent, he made his way into Yamamoto's barracks and settled down, waiting patiently for Ichigo to arrive. The old man allowed it, as he figured the simplistic nature of the bloodthirsty fighter might inspire some revelation to some of his questions. I couldn't give a damn who dies. That just means they were weak, he said, completely without care. Though it does surprise me. Aizen said that he wanted to help save that Kuchiki girl, and he was going to do everything to help do that. You'd think Ichigo would take him up on that offer. Indeed, Yamamoto mused. Ichigo Kurosaki, when you and your friends were attacked with the intent of capture, you defeated them without killing them. Aizen finds you and tries to help you. You kill him in cold blood. What is happening? He questioned as he enjoyed the rest of his tea. Recovery and reactions. The orange-haired warrior stood there, in the pale light of the moon amidst the wreckage and rubble of his clash with the captain. He wasn't aware of the gathering audience or even what they saw. His knowledge about Aizen's abilities were simply that of illusions, not the extent of it. He surveyed the soul reapers surrounding him, the distraught petite girl with her hair in a bun, a man with a tattoo of 69 on his face, another wearing sunglasses with a thin mustache, a third with long blonde hair covering an eye, a woman with wavy blonde hair and huge assets, and Jin Ikamaru with a shorter white-haired boy wearing an haori. 2 captains, one of which tried to kill me earlier, he thought to himself as he analyzed his situation, noting the badges on the others' arms. Along with 5 lieutenants, Ichigo felt the stress of the earlier fight seep into his body, making him feel weaker and weaker. Can I talk my way out of this, you murderer? The petite girl screamed, charging at him with hate in her eyes. Guess not, he realized with finality as the girl called out her blade, turning it into a multi-pronged sword on fire. When she got within 5 feet of him, however, he stopped her cold in her tracks with a large hand wrapped tightly around her neck. I need to get out of here, that fight took too much out of me. He tightened his grip as she struggled feebly in his hand, already weakening from the cut-off blood flow to her brain. He loosened his grip when she stopped struggling, leaving her only unconscious. It did not look good to the others watching this. Momo, he heard them cry out as he let the girl down as gently and quickly as possible. He barely had enough time to avoid the spinning twin-sided scythe blade, causing him to jump away from the downed girl. You bastard, the man with the tattoo called out, guessing Aizen had them under his illusion before the fight. He tried to focus while dodging the blades as the lieutenant charged at him with both Kusarigama poles while the Yakuza man attacked him with a large scimitar blade that had a pick below the tip. Both were relentless in their attacks, making Ichigo bend and weave through their attacks, unaware of the blonde lieutenant's chanting of a Kaido spell. He was impaled with the familiar rods of light which slowed him enough for both of his attackers to strike him. Both attacks hit true as the cold steel dug their way into his flesh, or that was the intention at least. When they made contact, they bounced off of him harmlessly. Impossible. The white-haired Hitsugaya gasped. Just how much power does he have? He damned his own abilities for being too dangerous to allow him to join in the fight, wanting to immediately kill the Ryoka for daring to harm his friend. More than enough, Jin thought as he watched the fight, losing his fox-like smirk to analyze the hybrid. That's a terrifying hero he has, he thought before Ichigo forced his opponents away with a massive pulse of his Ryatsu. Near perfect regeneration, strong defense, amazing Ryatsu control and manipulation. And best of all, he'll only get stronger. He felt himself grin. He'll do nicely. He saw Hisagi throw his Shikai blade one more time at the hybrid. I can't wait any longer, Ichigo growled in his mind. Just as the spinning blades passed him, he grabbed onto the chain and wrapped it around his arm. The look of shock on the lieutenant was enough for Ichigo to yank on the chain and swing him around like a flail. After watching his ally get slammed into several hard surfaces, the Yakuza-looking man tried to attack Ichigo again. Ichigo sent him flying back with a punch to his gut and further back as Hisagi collided with him. Hado number 11, Tsuzuri Raiden, he whispered, sending an electric current through the chain and turning the two into light bulbs. Raise your head, Wabasuk, he heard from behind him. He released Zenjutsu in time to turn and block a relentless assault from the Squad 3 lieutenant and his hook-shaped blade. When he backed off, Ichigo nearly collapsed at the sudden change of weight in his sword. My blade doubles the weight of anything it strikes. I've struck your sword over 20 times. You can no longer lift your blade, the man said as he hooked Ichigo's neck with his sword. Submit and atone for the sin of hurting my friends, he said as he pulled. Izuru, that's not going to work, Jin called out to his lieutenant. Sure enough, the blade barely made a scratch in the hybrid. Ichigo merely grabbed the blade and removed it from his neck before calmly raising up his sword. Kira was watching in dismay as Ichigo clearly demonstrated his prowess. "Next time I see you, tell me how much this hurts," he said before swinging the flat of his blade like a club and sending the man flying. "Damn, I could barely keep that going," he said before changing his blade and removing the effects. "That was really heavy." "Sit upon the frosted heavens, Hyorin Maru," the child captain called out. In the midst of the onslaught against the hybrid, his lieutenant Rangaku managed to pull his childhood friend Momo out of harm's way. With the other lieutenants out of his range, he and Ikamaru could now get involved. He sent a few of his ice dragons down on the lone Ryoka. He saw Ichigo scan the area and seemed relieved that he was alone. He saw a dark red ball of energy coalesce in his hand. "Is that he thought in confusion before Ichigo thrust his hand at him and unleashed the torrent of power. Bakudo number 39, in Kozen. Jin yelled out, getting in front of his colleague with a round orange shield before Ichigo's Zero destroyed the dragons and blast even them away. Is he already at the level of an Espada? Jin wondered, thinking back to Aizen's army and comparing the powers of the two. Before he could do anything else, a massive thick cloud of red smoke exploded from Ichigo's position and his Ryatsu seemed to disappear. "That project worked a little too well, Aizen. This boy is going to kill you," he predicted as reinforcements came too late. "Ichigo has disappeared." Oh. The hybrid chanted as he speed walked toward another sewer entrance to hide and lick his wounds. With the danger gone and his adrenaline wearing away, that dull itch in his side became a sharp pain, like something was carving away at his insides. "Damn you, Aizen," he cursed, feeling himself weakening more and more. This is going to make talking to Yamamoto a bit worrisome. He managed to find his way to a safe place and collapsed on the floor. "Back in a sewer system, almost completely drained, and they know I have hollow powers." Ichigo grunted. "I need a nap," he mumbled before darkness took him, unaware of several figures in white appearing from behind him. He stood, watching in shock and awe at the battle that transpired. He brought Ganju and Hanataro to a good resting spot for the night, and it wouldn't be too much longer till they get to Rukia's cell. He sent out a couple hell butterflies informing both his captain and the head captain of what was happening with him. He confronted Ichigo and was completely outclassed in a single move. He would take the other Ryoka and bring him to the Repentance cell to settle a personal issue of some kind, and Ichigo was determined to reach the commander. While the others slept, he stood as a sentinel against any that might show up for some meager ounce of glory or something else idiotic. That's when he saw explosions of force and Rise. He immediately realized that Ichigo was fighting, and was glad that Ichigo chose not to fight him. After some time the struggle died down and he heard an echoing scream of despair that stretched all over the Serete. "Captain Aizen," he heard Hinamori scream. That caught the tattooed lieutenant's attention. "You murderer." Renji was shocked at that. "Ichigo, you killed." Renji didn't know Ichigo at all personally, just that he had the presence of a powerful and honorable warrior. Rukia told him more as a man that would fight to protect anyone if he could help. Everything he heard about Ichigo and everything he knew about Aizen told him that the two would be friends, allies. Aizen would bring Ichigo to the commander, they discuss Rukia's case and get her amnesty, and he'd be placed under strict observation until the event that he could fully become a Soul Reaper. But now, Ichigo killed Aizen. What was going on? The battle continued with Lieutenants Kira, Hisagi, and Tetsuzeman proving no challenge and Captain Hitsuge attempting to attack, only for his Shikai to be overpowered with a hollow Zero. "Ichigo, what the hell are you?" Tatsuki lay on her cell cot, resting and waiting with guards on standby to act. Despite what happened after the spar, Tatsuki was being treated rather well. The interrogation didn't yield too much they didn't already know, other than who could fight captains. Tatsuki was being a well-behaved prisoner, so she was being treated relatively well. It wasn't until Ichigo's fight with Aizen started did she react. "What's going on?" she asked one of her guards when a member of the patrol corps came in when the fight ended. The last thing she felt about her lover's Ryatsu was that it was fluctuating from focused to chaotic and weak. She was sitting at the edge of the cot with anticipation and worry. Apparently Ichigo met with Captain Aizen. The messenger stated. Aizen offered to help Ichigo, who instantly attacked with no other provocation. Her teachers never said anything about Aizen to her. All she knew was that he was never to be trusted. But for Ichigo to simply attack someone out of the blue, he must know something about Aizen she clearly didn't. Captain Aizen stated his intentions to save the prisoner, but Ichigo responded that he didn't care about the prisoner before fatally injuring the captain. Ichigo Kurosaki disappeared without a trace shortly after disabling Lieutenants Momo Hinamori, Izurukira, Shuhei Hisagi, and Tetsuzima Niba. Tatsuki felt sick and numb, all the strength drained from her. Same orders apply. Capture the Ryoka, by any means necessary. He didn't say it, but the implications were clear. Lethal force is permitted. Only Captain-class Soul Reapers may confront Ichigo Kurosaki. He was resting after a long day of running around, evading patrols, beating the crap out of other Soul Reapers, placing tags all over the Serete, and he still had more to do. He had the energy, more than enough to keep going. Endurance, stamina, and strength were the things Tatsuki couldn't beat him at, and he wasn't too far behind Ichigo's level in those areas. The reason he needed to rest was to calm himself down. Ichigo was in trouble, he felt it. He should find him, watch his back, shield him when he can't protect himself. But he had his mission, and Ichigo trusted him. Thinking back on last night when they talked. "Hey Chad, what's with those packets you gave to Ganju's friends?" Ichigo asked before they all retired for the night. "I don't know. Something Urahara gave me," said. 5 in every district and where the pressure seemed greatest. "He told me and Uryu to place these in hotspots all over Serete," he explained. He didn't say it, but he felt uneasy about abandoning Ichigo in enemy territory. "Don't even think about it, Chad," Ichigo quickly said. "I don't care how bad it gets, you have a mission and you see it through to the end. Don't worry about me, cause I'm not worried about you," he said, making the giant look at him questioningly. "I have too much faith in you to worry about you dying on me," he answered, throwing a confident smile to his longtime friend. It eased Sato's nerves as he fell asleep for the night. "Ichigo," he mumbled, rubbing the medallion on his neck. "You'll be fine," he said, reassuring himself before lying down to rest for a time. "I'm sorry for being a bad friend. I can't help but be worried about you from time to time. I swear to never let you down though." He let the darkness take him. The duo finished placing the next patch at their current location when they felt Ichigo's battle. Oriheim desperately wanted to get to his side, but Uryu managed to calm her down by reminding her how outclassed she would be. Best to let Ichigo finish his fight when she could be safe from the crossfire. By the time the dust settled and it was safe to go to him, he vanished. Uryu became the victim of an angry Oriheim and her less than happy fairies who were now attacking Uryu in the most annoying manner possible, with Oriheim angrily pouting at him. "Well, at least she's not really hurting me," he rationalized after remembering what she did to that one Shinigami that attacked them. The ones they saw first were easily dispatched with his bow and Tsubaki. The ones that found them, Oriheim proved her frightening skill with her martial arts. It was embarrassing that she was handling the close quarters combat while he was too slow to stop them. He could hold his own. Oriheim just always attacked first. That's when he felt a familiar Rizei presence, one he only recognized from his father. What the hell? He wondered before feeling a fluctuation in Rizei that quickly dissipated. "Uryu, what was that?" Oriheim asked, recalling her sprites and calming down. "That was Ichigo and something else," Uryu said, being as vague as possible. "The Vandenreich watches from the shadows. That shadows of Soul Society. How is this possible?" He tried to figure out before deciding to double their efforts and progress. "Come on, Oriheim, we have work to do." "Right," she said, matching the urgency in his tone. "Was this on your command?" The Black Zenjutsu questioned, standing watchful over his charge and master. "Are you sentient enough to make these commands? Or was this the order of your mindless dogs?" Ichigo himself rested peacefully, unaware of events that took place. "Well, that was boring," came the warped voice of the real Blade. "King's showing hopeful progress though. Then the Quincy soldats are dead," the elder said. "That's good. They might see the asset or threat that Ichigo is, but won't attack knowing he is invulnerable." He then noticed Ichigo healing faster. "Yeah, they'll also be less inclined now knowing what might happen." The Hollow spoke. "It'll take more than a bunch of nameless drones to capture Ichigo on our watch." "Indeed," the old man said, watching Ichigo awaken from his slumber. "Like maybe a cute girl with a nice rack. Someone like that one blonde chick." "Shut up." He roused himself from his slumber, releasing a yawn as he stretched himself and feeling several familiar pops in his joints and back. He forced himself to his feet and stretched out more. "Thank God for my regenerative powers," he said to himself. "Not only would I be sore, I'd be dead otherwise." "Where do souls go when they die?" Ichigo asked as he opened his eyes, only to be met with the picture of several dead bodies, all in white military uniforms with a Quincy cross that all seemed to have deep gashes in their bodies. He looked down to see his blade, stained red in gore. "Let it go, Ichigo, you have stuff to do," he said, choosing to ignore the bodies of the Quincy. If he was going to reach Yamamoto today, he could not afford any distractions. He proceeded to leave his little hideaway after calling his blade back to his hand. Captain Kyoraku, a female Shinigami with a stern expression, called to her lazing captain. "A Ryoka has appeared." Which one now? The lazy bearded man known as Shunsui Kyoraku asked his secretary, Lieutenant. Tatsuki gave them a description of her friends and vouched that Ichigo would never kill unless necessary. Based on what Arasawa said, he should be Yasutora Sado. She said, he's not permitted to fight a captain, but neither was Arasawa and she sparred with Captain Soifon. There is a difference, he said, raising from his nap. Come on, let's go greet our guest. Ichigo finally made it to the courtyard of the leader of the Godai 13's base. The building stood there, tall and imposing as Ichigo strode over to his destination. Come on out already, Ichigo called out. I know I've kept you waiting, but I was held up. He felt an immense spiritual pressure come down on him as a hunched figure on the roof of the barracks stood up. Ichigo felt a savage nature much like his repressed instincts. As much as he'd hate to say it, Ichigo was excited. The man jumped off the roof of the barracks and came crashing down across from him. I admit I was losing patience, the Kenpachi said in a deep tone, the jingling of his bells adding somewhat to his menace. But that fight last night only served to excite me more. He stood to his full imposing height, showing his brutal and ragged form. Name's Kenpachi Zaraki, captain of Squad 11. And I'm pleased to finally meet you, Ichigo Kurosaki, he said with a savage grin.